Chapter 1388. In the Intermediate Profound Class 2, Devil Class was their common enemy. From the high and mighty, talented genius students, they had fallen to the point of being ridiculed by everyone. Even their families had abandoned them. High Profound Class 2 students became students of the Intermediate Profound Class 2, dropped 2 classes consecutively to the arrogant students. What kind of blow was this? All of this. It was all thanks to the Devil Class. All thanks to Yi Qing Luo. The students heard the instructors mentioning Devil Class. The students' vision all turned towards the direction of Devil Class. They discovered that Devil Class, who had been walking behind them, had unknowingly walked in front of them. 62 students. Their footwork was in sync in an orderly formation. There was no mess at all. What made everyone most surprised was these 62 students, other than a slight blush on their faces, there was not a single drop of sweat, nor did they hear their heavy panting, as though walking for an entire afternoon, to them, was equivalent to walking a few steps. Hearing the 2 instructors' words, Devil Class's students stopped in their tracks, as their gazes swept over in unison. Yi Qing Luo, who was standing right in front, had a smile which didn't look like a smile. That smile, in the eyes of the Intermediate Profound Class 2 students, that was a blatant provocation. But on seeing those students, their expressions didn't change, as though even if they walked for a few more hours, they would absolutely not complain about it. These people were all freaking perverts. The students' inner hearts were on the verge of collapsing. Devil Class students, are you doing this on purpose? Definitely on purpose. Insisting on putting on a brave front at this moment is just trying to embarrass us. I've never seen such people who only care about their own selfish desires, totally disregarding the other students. It's too disgusting. The Intermediate Profound Class 2 students grumbled in a low voice, whereas the other classes' students couldn't help but started complaining. They had all heard that when Yi Qing Luo was training for the freshmen, she ran 5 rounds around the academy's field. All the students couldn't hold on any longer. Yi Qing Luo was still running. The other students had no other choice, as they could only try their best to keep up. Those students whose legs had completely lost their strength suddenly felt that Devil Class was pretending to be pretentious, purposely walking so fast and even putting on a look as though they didn't feel tired. Hearing these words, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. These people were really pampered young masters and young ladies. If they knew, on the bodies of the Devil Class students, there were at least 80 caddies of weight. Would they be so frightened that they would vomit blood? If these people were only insulting her, she wouldn't be able to do anything. Right now, she didn't have the time to care about this. Rather than wasting his saliva, it was better to reason with these people. She might as well save her energy. But these students had dragged the Devil Class into it. She narrowed her eyes, and her long and narrow eyes landed on one of the female students in the Intermediate Profound Class 2. Yi Qing Luo wasn't unfamiliar with this female student. They had circled around Lu Shui Yu several times and insulted her several times. However, after she returned to the academy with the divine artifact, she became one of the cannon fodder girls who hugged her thighs. She was the one who started the conversation just now. These Intermediate Profound Class 2 students were really bored to death. Lu Shuiyu, who deliberately stirred up trouble, and Yan Jinfei, who liked to stir up trouble, had left. Now, there were a few more cannon fodder girls. These female students wanted to follow Lu Shuiyu and Yan Jinfei's ending, using the most humiliating way to leave the academy. Yi Qing Luo really couldn't understand these female students' brain circuits. Chapter 1389. The students from the Intermediate Profound Class 2 stared at the person who walked out. Their faces were filled with anger, but they didn't dare to say anything. Gradually, the discussions in the surroundings quieted down. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she gazed at the figure standing in front of her. It was Xie Yan. Why would he speak up for her at this moment? One must know that he was still a student from the intermediate profound class 2. Those who complained and accused her earlier were the majority of the students from the intermediate profound class 2. At this moment, Xia Yan totally didn't give any face to those students. Wouldn't these students bear a grudge? But looking at those students staring at Xia Yan with an obviously fearful look, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but feel surprised. She secretly speculated on Xia Yan's identity. What student Xia said is right. It's because you can't do it yourself that you don't know how to find excuses and blame those who can do it. I really don't know how your families taught you. Instructor Ho sneered as the expression on his face turned colder. If you don't want to embarrass yourself, if you want to prove yourself, if you don't want others to think that you are not as good as the devil class, then stand up and continue walking. Don't find any excuses. Those students were infuriated by Instructor Ho's words. No one wanted to embarrass themselves. No one wanted the other students to see them as a joke. They didn't want the other students to think that they were not as good as the devil class. Each and every student's competitive spirit was ignited. They gritted their teeth as they stood up and followed the team forward. Looking at the group of students who were following behind the devil class, sweating profusely, yet stubbornly walking forward, the dean who was riding at the front frowned slightly. Aren't the instructors too strict? They are, after all, still children. In his heart, he was thinking, if these students died of exhaustion on the way, what food could he use to answer to the dark forces? From the moment they entered the Heavenly Academy, they are no longer children. Yun Duan shook his head with a face full of smiles. Although Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu's method is a little harsh, but to this group of students, it is a good training. On the other side, Fifth Elder Yun Hai chimed in, the performance of the devil class this year is really surprising. With the existence of the devil class, I'm sure it will be able to motivate the other students to work even harder. Yun Hai looked at the neat formation of the devil class with satisfaction. With regards to the performance of the devil class, the elders were actually extremely appreciative. From the start to the end, the devil class's students did not express any opinions, as they followed the group obediently. It could be fast or slow. In this elder's opinion, devil class is intentionally showing off their physical strength to give the other students a show of strength. Yun Xiang snorted lightly as his gaze swept past Yi Qing Luo in disdain. From what he saw, the students of the devil class were simply putting up a front. Second bro, Yun Duan scolded in a low voice. He glared at Yun Xiang and turned to look at the dean. Let these students persevere for a while longer. Maybe they can unleash their potential and see where their limits lie. The dean nodded. The students held on. After all, they were holding on. After walking for about an hour, there were already some students who couldn't take it anymore and collapsed. The team moved slower and slower. In the end, the headmaster still ordered them to rest for the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn before setting off. This news made the students cheer endlessly. Chapter 1390. The students fell down one by one. Lying on the ground with their legs limp, no one was willing to move a single step. Devil class's side also dispersed under Yi Qing Luo's command as they randomly found a place to sit down. There were some students who remained standing, surveying their surroundings. This was what Yi Qing Luo had taught everyone. No matter when, as long as they were in an unfamiliar place, they must try their best to remember everything around them. The best way was to draw out the map in their minds. In a battle, the side who was more familiar with the terrain would definitely gain the upper hand. Instructor Chu and Instructor Ho, as well as a few elders and teachers, were all observing the devil class. After seeing devil class's situation, everyone couldn't help but sigh silently. All of them were astonished. This devil class's transformation was simply too inconceivable. After Yan Zhen Fei used the portraits to verify that devil class's students, there were the bunch of trash who entered the Heavenly Academy with the lowest results and were allocated to devil class. After that, these trash were bullied by the other classes using various methods. Even if the academy came forward to stop them, they were unable to avoid the students bullying in the dark. As time passed, the academy turned a blind eye to it. In the memories of these teachers and instructors, Devil Class seemed to have disappeared from the academy a few years ago. Their academy's wooden token didn't have any activity. A bunch of trash. Even if they disappeared for a few years, they would absolutely not be able to stir up any big waves. The academy's teachers, none of them put this matter to heart. They had not expected Devil Class would use such a transformation to reappear in front of everyone. The current Devil Class, no matter if it was the team's coordination or their own ability, attitude, and stamina, were all incomparable to the other classes' students. Even outside, these students' vigilance and keen observation towards their surroundings. Even for them, these teachers, they might not be able to achieve the Devil Class's students' precision. Who was it that made these trash to have such an earth-shattering transformation? Who was it that changed them? Under such deep thoughts, the director's gaze unknowingly fell onto Long Yunjian, who was sitting next to Yiqing Luo with a cold expression. That side profile, that cold expression, he wouldn't recognize wrongly. This Devil Class's class monitor. Why would he appear in Devil Class? Just at this moment, a commotion suddenly broke out among the students. The teachers stopped their discussion with the students and looked over. A female student flew through the air and landed heavily on the ground. A mouthful of blood overflowed from her mouth, whereas Yiqing Luo stood at her original spot and slowly retracted her leg. As she looked at that female student with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Intermediate Profound Class 2. My Devil Class isn't afraid of trouble, but just don't want to stir up trouble. If you continue to play tricks in front of me the next time, it won't just be one kick. Yiqing Luo, stop your nonsense. Yun Xiang was the first to slap the rock and stand up. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of the dean? How did your headmaster teach you? How dare you attack your own classmate? Yiqing Luo sneered. At most, I was merely defending myself. She had already poisoned my Devil Class. Don't tell me I should still smile and thank her for poisoning my Devil Class? Poison? Those students who were paralyzed on the ground immediately sat up straight and looked at Yiqing Luo when they heard this word. Are you kidding me? Under the eyes of so many people, to poison the Devil Class? Chapter 1391. Yun Xiang naturally didn't believe it. He creased his white brows. Student Yiqing Luo, if you want to find an excuse, you should find a better one. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, how could this student possibly poison you? Yiqing Luo gave a cold scoff as she squinted her eyes, looking coldly at that cannon fodder female student who was lying on the ground. This student, can I trouble you to stretch out your hand for everyone to take a look? The female student held onto her chest with a pained look. Her face was pale as she shook her head hard. I didn't. I just wanted to apologize to you for the things I had complained about earlier. You suddenly struck. Saying that, she started to cry softly. As she cried, she stretched out her hand and spread it out. That slender white hand had nothing on it. When Yun Xiang saw that, his brows instantly creased into a bundle. Yiqing Luo, what else do you have to say now? Yiqing Luo didn't have any signs of panic as she looked at the cannon fodder female student with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Then where's the other hand? The other hand of the female student was covering her chest. The other students all placed their gazes on the female student's chest because of Yiqing Luo's words. The students present were mostly male students. This gaze was directly placed on a student's chest. Immediately that made that female student's ears flushed red as she gritted her teeth and stretched out that hand. Student Yiqing Luo, I hope that you can apologize to me for your own actions. The other hand was spread out. The students' eyes widened as they looked at it. They didn't see any poison in the female student's hand. The students' gazes towards Yiqing Luo were a little strange. Yun Xiang gave a cold harumph Student Yi Qing Luo, your actions have completely affected the other students. Like what this female student said. You still have to apologize to her for your own actions. Elder Yin Xiang, you're indeed getting on in years, and your eyes aren't working? Yi Qing Luo laughed out unrestrainedly. Her figure stretched out, and she was already standing in front of that cannon fodder female student. The female student only had time to let out a terrified scream when her wrist was held tightly by Yi Qing Luo. The medicinal powder in her palm. Does Elder Yin Xiang want to try it personally? Yi Qing Luo smiled as she looked at Yin Xiang. Medicinal powder? The female student widened her eyes in astonishment. She wanted to withdraw her hand. But Yi Qing Luo's grip was so tight that she was unable to struggle free. Since Yi Qing Luo didn't mention it, no one paid much attention to it. When Yi Qing Luo said that, everyone's vision fell onto the female student's palm. As expected, there was a black powder on the female student's palm. Why you're spouting nonsense? How could there be any powder? It's probably black dust from somewhere. The female student shook her head furiously, trying to find an excuse. Yi Qing Luo smiled. Her smile was extremely sincere. Since it's just ordinary dust, why don't you lick it? As long as you can prove that this is not poison, I will apologize to you. The female student's eyes widened, hearing what Yi Qing Luo said. She wasn't sure if her palm was really poisoned. But it wasn't poison powder. It must be you. You want to frame me. Everyone's eyes are sharp. I've only touched your wrist. I haven't even touched your palm. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes innocently. From the start till the end, she had only grabbed the female student's wrist. This doesn't prove that it's not you. Before Yun Xiang could say the word frame. Chapter 1392. Yun, Elder Yun Duan. The female student looked at Yun Duan in fear. I really didn't. Then how do you explain the poison powder in your hand? Yun Duan asked in a deep voice. The female student was trembling in fear as she shook her head furiously. I don't know. I don't know why there's poison powder. I obviously put in a pill. It's a pill. The roaring stopped abruptly. The female student's face turned pale. Immediately, her face turned ashen. She actually confessed without being pressed. When she met with Yi Qing Luo's eyes, which were filled with ridicule, the female student finally understood. She had fallen into Yi Qing Luo's trap, because the academy allowed the students to walk towards the southern continent. They specially prepared a water source pearl for every class. The water source pearl was similar to a space pocket. It was specially used to store water. One water source pearl could probably store enough water for 100 people to drink for a day. The female student was thinking of poisoning the water source pearl in the devil class, but she did not expect to be caught by Yi Qing Luo. That was what happened after that. This time you're heading to the southern continent for an exchange with the other academies. From the moment you were selected by the director and brought to the exchange, you're no longer students of the same class, but students of the same academy. Yun Duan's voice was calm and gentle, but indistinctly he emitted a kind of awe-inspiring aura which made everyone listen to his teachings in awe. In the academy, you can form cliques, and the academy will not interfere. But once you are out of the academy, you must always remember that you are the students of the Heavenly Academy. Every word and action of yours represents the academy. If the other academies see your class fighting and killing each other, how will they judge you, and what will they say about you? Do you think you have not embarrassed yourself enough during the interclass competition? Still want to continue to embarrass yourself in the other continents? Yun Duan's words became louder and louder. His words caused all the students to lower their heads. If you have the thought of embarrassing yourself and attend the exchange, you can scram back to the Heavenly Academy now. This sentence made the students even more apprehensive. Immediately, Yun Duan's gaze turned coldly to the female student who was kneeling on the ground with her wrist held by Yi Qing Luo. In front of the teachers, you dare to harm your own classmate. This kind of student, the Heavenly Academy does not dare to accept. This meant, was he going to force her to leave? The female student was terrified. She wiped away her tears and shook her head. Elder Yunduan, I won't dare to do it again. I won't dare. However, Yunduan's cold expression made the female student's heart turn cold. If he was forced to leave by the Heavenly Academy, her future would be ruined. She had already spread the news to her family and the other heiresses that she had been selected to participate in the Academy exchange meet. She was chased back with her tail between her legs. She would never be able to make a comeback in this lifetime. No matter what, she couldn't be expelled from the Academy. The female student suddenly knelt down in Zi Qianshan's direction. Goddess Qianshan, I beg you to save me. I cannot be expelled from the Academy. I cannot. Zi Qianshan's face was ashen as he glared at the female student. Suddenly hearing the female student's words, her expression changed. But her expression didn't escape Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Student Su, I really cannot agree with your actions, Zi Qianshan said indifferently. Her beautiful face was indifferent. The female student's eyes widened as her body slumped to the ground. Qian Goddess you. Chapter 1393. Zi Qianshan's tone changed as her beautiful eyes gazed towards the direction of the director. Director, Qianshan feels that the matter of leaving the academy should be decided after the end of the exchange meet. Why does student Zi say so? The director asked. Zi Qianshan smiled. I don't know what kind of problems the headquarters will throw at us during this exchange meet. One more person means one more strength. Moreover, student Su had at most attempted to poison us, and now that she has repented, why not let her stay and give her a chance to make up for her mistake? Zi Qianshan would always follow them to the exchange meet every year. She was no stranger to the exchange meet. Every time the exchange meet, the headquarters would always come up with various problems to make things difficult for the various academies' directors and students. Zi Qianshan's words made the director and the other elders nod their heads in agreement. Upon seeing this, Zi Qianshan increased his persuasion. Student Su is definitely not willing to leave the Heavenly Academy. With this opportunity, he will definitely perform well in the exchange meet and live up to the dean's expectations. Finishing her words, she looked at the female student. Student Su, do you agree? Yes. Director, I will definitely perform well. I will absolutely not let you down. The female student quickly kowtowed. The director had no intention of letting the female student leave just like that. This was the food that he had carefully picked out. Not a single one less. Immediately he followed Zi Qianshan's words and nodded. Since student Zi has pleaded for you, I will forgive you this time. If there's a next time, I will punish you severely. Thank you, Director. No one asked about the Devil class's wishes. He didn't even say a word of concern. The Devil class students indignantly wanted justice, but were stopped by Yi Qing Luo. In the Heavenly Academy, the director's words were greater than the heavens. Whatever the director had decided, they should obey. If they were to make a fuss, they might even be labeled as disrespectful to the director or disobedient. She didn't want the Devil class to be tainted with any bad reputation. So we're just going to let it go. Tong Zi Qing suppressed her anger and asked coldly, Of course I won't let this go. Yi Qing Luo smiled slightly. A student from intermediate class 2 dares to poison us openly. Don't you find it strange? Tong Zi Qing frowned. Is there someone behind this? Zi Qianshan isn't someone who likes to help others. Would she speak up for a female student who is about to be expelled from the academy for no reason? Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she smiled thoughtfully. The Devil class students were enlightened. Zi Qianshan had always been arrogant, so why would he speak up for other students? Obviously, Zi Qianshan was the one who ordered the female cannon fodder to poison him. But Yi Qing Luo still hadn't figured out what was Zi Qianshan's motive for doing so. Everyone treated it as an interlude. Soon after, the dean told the students to set off again. The expressions of the Devil class students did not change. Far ahead, the other students refused to admit defeat and wanted to chase after him, but in the end, they could only retreat in defeat. Along the way, Long Yunjan had been secretly observing the conversation between Zi Qianqian and the cannon fodder lady. Perhaps it was because of Yi Qing Luo's display of power. The two of them didn't have much contact. It took them 6 days to reach the South Billow continent, and nothing else happened. The steward arranged by the main courtyard led them to the courtyard of the Heavenly Academy. All the students directly fell onto the ground, sitting limply on the ground. Their mouths kept on wailing, and there were some who cried out excitedly. They had finally arrived. Chapter 1394. The main academy had specially set up a residence, which was comparable to a palace. There were numerous courtyards set up in the residence. The courtyard, as the name suggested, was specially arranged by the main academy for each academy to stay in when they came to participate in the exchange meet. Heavenly Academy was the best academy over the years. Naturally, he moved into the largest courtyard in the main academy, which was also the first sky dorm. Without the permission of the Heavenly Dean, most people would not dare to barge into the sky lodgings. Because of this, towards the students who had no image and slumped on the ground, the dean didn't blame them too much. He only told the students that they had rested well and returned to their respective rooms to wait for the summons. Following that, the dean brought Elder Yunduan and Elder Yunxiang and hurriedly headed towards the main academy to report. Compared to those students who were slumped on the ground. On the contrary, Devil class's expression didn't change, and they weren't even panting. 60 over people walked directly towards the dormitory area at the backyard of the courtyard. Hey, you all. You all are thinking. A few female students stared at Devil class's back view as they gritted their teeth to stop them, but their legs seemed to be filled with lead, totally unable to stand up. Hence, the students who had fallen on the ground could only look on helplessly as that bunch of people walked into the dormitory area. Su Xiaolian, who was also that cannon fodder girl, sat up and looked at Zi Qianqian, who was also drenched in sweat, as she lowered her voice. "Goddess Qianqian, they will snatch your room away." Zi Qianqian's expression turned ugly. She thought that her physical fitness was considered rather good. After walking continuously for 6 days, in these 6 days, she had been competing with Devil class's students nonstop, walking till the skin on her feet peeled off and the pain was unbearable. She didn't even make a sound. She just didn't want to be belittled by Devil class's students. But she didn't expect that. These 6 days, she had completely used up all her energy. But she couldn't even be compared to a low-leveled student in Devil class. This made the usually arrogant Zi Qianqian's self-esteem completely take a blow. Hearing Su Xiaolian's words, Zi Qianqian restrained the stern look in her eyes and snorted coldly. The dormitory is arranged by the dean. Which room she wants to sleep in, it's not up to her. In actual fact, Yi Qing Luo had indeed stayed at the place where Zi Qianqian usually stayed during the annual exchange meet. After the group of students had rested enough, a teacher came to urge them to rush to the headquarters to meet with the deans and students of the other schools. Only then did they get up from the ground and walk towards the dormitory area. Zi Qianqian was escorted by Su Xiaolian's group of intermediate profound class 2 students to the largest room in the middle of the dormitory area. The moment he pushed the door open, he saw Yi Qing Luo sitting by the bed, hugging a snow-white kitten, not knowing what she was whispering. Zi Qianqian's face sank. Su Xiaolian shouted sternly, "Yi Qing Luo!" This was Goddess Qianqian's room. You actually dared to snatch Qianqian's room. Who gave you the guts? Following closely behind them were 5 other female students. They were the same group of cannon fodder girls who used to suck up to Lu Shuiyu. Now, the intermediate profound class, too, was without a leader. They set their sights on Zi Qianqian. Exactly. Yi Qing Luo, how dare you snatch Goddess Qianshan's room? If this goes to the dean, let's see how you account for it. Yi Qing Luo was originally hugging Qi and discussing official matters with Qi. Suddenly, the door was pushed open and a bunch of women pointed at their noses and scolded. No matter who it was, their mood would be bad. Chapter 1395. Su Xiaolian turned pale with fright and subconsciously hid behind Zi Qianshan. Get lost. Cold words without the slightest emotion. She just raised her eyes and exuded a strong chill. Not only those female students. Even Zi Qianshan was intimidated by this chill. But at this time, Zi Qianshan must not give in. Since young, she had never suffered any humiliation. The only time was when Yi Qing Luo humiliated her. How could she give in to Yi Qing Luo? Student Yi Qing Luo, this room is my room. Zi Qianshan also released her aura and said coldly, the room here is not something you can stay in just because you want to. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows and laughed out loud. Your room? Is your name pasted on it, or is it stained with your scent? You. Zi Qianshan was furious. This was obviously treating Zi Qianshan and the beast as the same kind. Yi Qing Luo brushed the long hair on her cheeks and smiled sweetly. This room is not something I can stay in just because I want to, nor is it something you can stay in just because you want to. Zi Qianshan clenched her fists. So, you are not willing to give in? Why? Want to fight? Yi Qing Luo ridiculed. Do you think a loser has the right to clamor in front of me? Zi Qianshan's face darkened and turned green and white. Losing to Yi Qing Luo in the last round of the interclass competition was the biggest humiliation in Zi Qianshan's life. And now Yi Qing Luo was using it to mock her. When had Zi Qianshan ever suffered such humiliation? The anger in her heart suddenly ignited. Before Zi Qianshan could get angry, Su Xiaolian had already retorted on behalf of Zi Qianshan. It's just a win. What's there to show off? That's still a win. Yi Qing Luo smiled. You were lucky. Our goddess deliberately gave in to you. Su Xiaolian's face turned red. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. That's still a win. Don't be too proud. One match is nothing. This is not an excuse for you to forcibly occupy our goddess's room. Su Xiaolian stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo and stammered. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and maintained her smile. That's still a win. Yugu. Su Xiaolian was furious. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? She had learned something new. Can't you change your excuse? Yi Qing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered as she blinked and smiled innocently. No. Night. Qing. Fall. Su Xiaolian couldn't bear it any longer as she pounced forward and was about to give Yi Qing Luo a tight slap. He had yet to reach Yi Qing Luo. He suddenly felt a dull pain in his chest. His body was flung backward heavily. Ah! Su Xiaolian's body sank and crashed into Zi Qianshan and a group of female students. Zi Qianshan waved his hand in disgust and threw her to the side. Su Xiaolian's delicate body hit the wooden table beside her and fell to the ground. She clutched her chest and pointed at Yi Qing Luo. You actually dare to lay a hand on me. I'm going to tell the director. Yi Qing Luo withdrew her leg and gracefully leaned against the bedside. Are you still a child? Why do you always want to tell on me? What's more, that kick of hers didn't hurt Su Xiaolian at all. It was Zi Qianshan's push that hurt Su Xiaolian. She didn't even know who was the one who hurt her. She deserved to be taken advantage of. Su Xiaolian was so angry that she almost cried. After walking for a few days, her body was already exhausted. Chapter 1396. If there's nothing else, then scram. Don't disturb my rest. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand impatiently. He didn't want to waste his time with this group of stupid people. She still had business to discuss with Qi. Just you wait. When we see the courtyard. Su Xiaolian was about to say something harsh, but her arm was suddenly pinched. She groaned in pain and turned to look behind her. His face turned pale and he shut his mouth. The female students didn't say anything else. They just turned around and left the dormitory. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Su Xiaolian's behavior made her pay more attention to it. Yi Qing Luo summoned Shi Ju and made it follow behind those female students, reporting their whereabouts at any time. Shi Ju received the order, and that palm-sized body turned into an afterimage as it chased up to the footsteps of those female students. The room quietened down. Yi Qing Luo released her perception and confirmed that there was no one else around. Then he patted Chi-Chi's little head again and asked softly, "You said that you felt a strong calling from here?" Chi-Chi nodded her little head and said in a childish voice, "It's a very, very, very strong feeling. It's been calling for Chi-Chi." After that it pouted and said in a wrong tone, "Master is the only one who can summon Chi-Chi. Why can Chi-Chi feel other summoning? Did Master give Chi-Chi to someone else?" Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh out. She hugged Mu Chi-Chi tightly and kissed it on the forehead. "Mu Chi-Chi is so cute. How could I bear to give Mu Chi-Chi to someone else? Don't worry, I will solve this problem." Chi-Chi rubbed herself against her chest like a spoiled child. "Chi-Chi, go back to the pet space first. I will take some time to bring you to the place where you were summoned to check out the situation." Yi Qing Luo comforted in a gentle voice. Chi-Chi acted coquettishly for a while more before returning to the pet space. The gentle smile on Yi Qing Luo's face gradually faded. She narrowed her eyes and furrowed her brows. This strong feeling of being summoned. This feeling only appeared after they entered the South Tide continent. In other words, there was a mysterious force in the South Billow continent that was summoning Chi-Chi. But Shi Ju, Kitty Li, and Long Yunjian didn't seem to have such a feeling. In that case, that mysterious power only targeted holy beasts. "Old man Song, I have a guess." Yi Qing Luo pondered for a moment and decided to discuss with Old Man Song. "This old man thinks the same as you," Old Man Song replied indifferently. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips. Old Man Song thought so too. In other words, her guess was very likely to be true. "Want to go take a look?" Old Man Song saw through Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head. "If it's true, then we must make a trip there. But wait till the matter at the main courtyard has come to an end. After all this concerns Chi-Chi, I cannot make any mistakes." But Yi Qing Luo didn't know. On a big tree not far from the dormitory, two figures could be vaguely seen among the lush leaves. "Ah Wu, isn't this girl a little interesting?" The person who asked the question lazily leaned against a tree trunk. That person was dressed in a moon-white brocade robe with a golden outline around his waist. His jet-black hair was tied up by a plain-colored hairband, making him look extremely messy. It was an extremely delicate face. It was a little handsome and a little feminine. His pair of long and narrow almond-shaped eyes further outlined his demonic beauty. Chapter 1397. Beside the white-robed young man sat a cold and impatient-looking black-robed young man. That black-robed young man looked extremely handsome, and even though he was sitting beside the white-robed young man, he didn't lose any of his brilliance. "Young Master Amo, if you're pulling me here to squat at a lady's corner and peep at her, I don't have the time to accompany you," the black-robed young man said coldly. The white-clothed youth immediately grabbed his wrist. His long and narrow phoenix eyes revealed a shimmering luster. "It's not like I don't know. Ah Wu, you've been wholeheartedly focused on practicing martial arts. You don't have any particular interest in women. I've pulled you here because this girl has her merits." The black-robed young man's brows creased as his brows creased tightly as he looked through the half-open window at that indescribably beautiful young lady in the room. No matter how he looked at her, he couldn't see any redeeming qualities. The only redeeming quality was that face. But He had no interest towards women at all. No matter how good-looking his face was, it couldn't be compared to his martial arts practice. I heard that Heavenly Academy students had walked all the way from the West Continent to the South Continent. The white-robed young man rubbed his chin. After a few days of walking, this young lady's class seemed to be fine. His handsome brows rose. If it was you, can you maintain the same state as her after walking for a few days, without being affected at all? The black-robed young man's eyes flashed slightly. The white-robed young man didn't miss the black-robed young man's expression as his lips curled into an evil smile as he stretched out his hand and placed it on his shoulder. A few days ago, I've heard of Devil Class's Yi Qing Luo's name, and I've always been very interested in this mysterious class. I'm very excited to be able to meet you tomorrow. Suddenly, the young lady in the room raised her head abruptly. A pair of crystal-clear eyes, which seemed to be inlaid with luminous pearls, stared unblinkingly at the direction of the two young men. Who? A cold and sweet voice was heard from the room. That pair of charming eyes were filled with a biting, cold glare in an instant. Just by getting close, they felt their entire bodies turning cold. The black and white young men's expressions changed slightly. They exchanged glances with each other. From each other's eyes, they saw the same astonishment. That young lady actually discovered their presence? Before they could be surprised, the girl who was originally sitting in the room had already rushed out of the door and was heading in their direction. The black and white youth suppressed the surprise in his heart and released his mystic rank. By the time Yi Qing Luo appeared on top of that huge tree, there was no one there. Only the faint fragrance of bamboo wafted into the air. It was fresh, elegant, and refreshing. There was indeed someone. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she stared vigilantly at the surroundings. She had just arrived at South Billow Continent, and she was already being followed? Who was the person peeping at her from the tree? How did he manage to escape under her nose? Could it be? Were they from the dark forces? That was impossible. The dark forces had been thrown into disarray by the Darch Palace. He couldn't find an opportunity to send a portion of the dark forces to the South Wave Continent to chase after her. Then, who was the person he sensed just now? He was vigilantly pondering and exploring his surroundings. Suddenly, a small black thing leaped onto her shoulder. Its furry little head rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's face. Shiju. Yi Qing Luo hugged Shiju and gently rubbed its head. Did you manage to find out any news? Chapter 1398. From Shiju's mouth, Yi Qing Luo found out. After Su Xiaolian, Zi Qianqian, and the others left the dormitory area, they headed straight for the headquarters. As he was walking, he didn't forget to ridicule Yi Qing Luo for not being able to make it in time for the banquet. As one of the students participating in the Academy Exchange Conference, the entire class refused to attend. This was a blatant disrespect to the headquarters. It turned out that those people had concealed the fact that the dean had summoned all the students to gather at the headquarters. Purposely not telling her about this news was so that the main courtyard would blacklist the devil class. After Yi Qing Luo heard everything, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. These people really did not take the instructor's words to heart. They thought that if the devil class did not answer the summons and went to the headquarters would only blame the devil class. This was not the Heavenly Academy or the West Continent. All of them represented the Heavenly Academy as a whole. She won't be there. The general courtyard would only target the Academy. The outside world would only say that the Heavenly Academy was disrespectful to the headquarters, and would not say that it was the devil class who was disrespectful to the headquarters. Had the intelligence of these women been eaten by beasts? How could he be so stupid, risking his future for a moment of pleasure? Only they could do that. Wasn't Zi Qianqian known as a genius student? Wasn't he extremely smart? How could he not think of these consequences? A woman's jealousy is truly terrifying. Old man Song sighed with emotion. Yi Qing Luo was speechless. Perhaps it was because she had never experienced the so-called jealousy. Thus, he could not understand why Zi Qianshan would act out of jealousy. She put Shi Ju back into the pet space and immediately informed the other brothers to gather at the general courtyard. Outside the first courtyard of the Tianzi residence, two figures watched everything that happened inside from afar. The corner of the white-clothed youth's mouth rose, and he laughed evilly. "Ah, Wu, that's a low-level phantom beast, right?" The youth in black narrowed his eyes and pondered. "How did she discover us?" "That's why yours truly said that this lass is interesting." The white-clothed youth raised his brows, and his smile became even more devilish. "Ah, Wu, I feel that the exchange meet this time will be very interesting." Inside the general courtyard, students from the various academies arrived one after another. Gradually, the spacious hall was filled with people. There were at least 100 academies participating in this exchange meet. Even the smallest academy had nearly 50 students. The steward of the headquarters was holding a name list and reading out the names of the academies that had arrived. In the headquarters, admission was not based on one's status or position in the academy. It was first come, first served, so you had to queue up. The dean looked at the tens of students behind him and frowned. Why aren't any of the students from the devil class here? This is not a place for them to be willful. Zi Qianshan pacified the dean's emotions. "Sir Dean, whether the devil class is around or not, it doesn't matter to us. Haven't we students been accompanying you all these years? It doesn't matter if they come or not, but this is a group activity of the academy. If the devil class doesn't come after so long, how will the other academies look at the Black Academy?" Yun Xiang said with dissatisfaction. The dean's face darkened. Zi Qianshan, Su Xiaolian, and the others exchanged glances and hid the smile in their eyes. Then they obediently followed behind the headmaster, until the butler announced the Heavenly Academy. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Only then did the dean's expression soften a little. Chapter 1399. The arrival of the Heavenly Academy had attracted the attention of everyone from the other academies. The Heavenly Academy had become a laughingstock in this round of interclass competition. Students cheated, colluding with the dark forces. There was also the class of trash that was known as trash. It became a dark horse that crushed those self-proclaimed elites until not even dregs were left. Especially the match where Yi Qing Luo single-handedly tortured Zi Qianshan. It was simply breathtaking. As a result, all the major academies were suspicious of the Heavenly Academy's miraculous class of gods. As a result, everyone was holding the attitude of watching a joke, watching the Heavenly Academy fall from the altar, to the fall becoming a joke. Their gazes searched among the Heavenly Academy's team, but there was no sign of devil class. The Heavenly Dean had already led Zi Qianshan and the rest to greet the Dean. The Dean of the General Hospital also heard about the match from the Vice Dean. He brought up the topic of the interclass competition and exchanged some pleasantries with the Dean. Immediately he asked, "Why didn't I see the dark horse class of your academy?" The Dean's face stiffened. Yun Duan immediately answered and smiled amiably. "I've let the Dean see a joke, those kids." He hadn't finished his sentence, but he was interrupted by mocking laughter. "Devil class's students are very arrogant. I'm afraid they won't be coming." The person who spoke was Su Xiaolian. The Dean and Yun Duan's expression changed. Su Xiaolian's voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. At least those academies sitting in the front row could hear it clearly. Immediately they started gossiping. The Dean's expression was slightly awkward. Perhaps he had not expected it and had never met a student who would ridicule his own classmate in public. Su Xiaolian saw everyone's gaze on her. He only felt that he was able to send the devil class, to send Yi Qing Luo to hell. So the words that came out of his mouth couldn't be stopped. "General Academy Director, you only need to see our academy's thousands of goddesses, and that's enough. Devil class will not be coming." "Student Su." Zi Qianshan frowned and pretended to be angry. "Don't talk nonsense. This is not a place for you to behave atrociously." I'm not talking nonsense. Su Xiaolian pouted, her lips aggrievedly. She still wanted to say something, but Dean Xian bellowed, "Enough! Don't spout nonsense. Shut up." Then he looked at the dean of the general hospital with an apologetic expression. "My lord, it's my fault for not disciplining them properly and disturbing your mood. I apologize to everyone here." As he spoke, he glanced at Yun Xiang beside him. Yun Xiang understood and took a pot of wine and a wine cup from the waiter. He poured a full cup of wine and presented it to the headmaster with both hands. The dean of the Heavenly Academy had an ugly look on his face as he suppressed his displeasure. "Dean, your Heavenly Academy is really getting more and more backward. The students you teach are of such quality." The dean smiled apologetically. He raised the wine in his cup and was about to finish it in one gulp. But suddenly they heard a cool and elegant voice coming from the door. "The Heavenly Academy Devil class is late. Please forgive us seniors." At the entrance of the hall, a beautiful lady dressed in a green and white uniform led a group of young and handsome boys and girls over. Gentle and courteous smiles appeared on their young faces. Chapter 1400. Devil Class's student is here to seek forgiveness from the various seniors. Yi Qing Luo stood in front of her brothers as she cupped her fists towards the principal with sincerity. The vice principal, who was sitting by the side, whispered into the principal's ear, "She is Devil Class's student Yi Qing Luo." Upon hearing Yi Qing Luo's name, the principal's eyes lit up as he stared at Yi Qing Luo and laughed loudly. "It's good that Devil Class's students are able to rush over. It's too serious to seek forgiveness. It's all right." The principal had always liked young and promising children. In the interclass competition, Yi Qing Luo's performance was simply too dazzling. The principal had long been interested in Yi Qing Luo, and when he met Yi Qing Luo again and saw her sincere attitude in admitting her mistake, his heart liked her even more. This is the famous Devil Class. Heroes indeed come from the youngsters. Look at these children, they look so handsome. The one seated on the left was the principal of Nan Tao Academy, who was second only to Heavenly Academy. Nan Tao and Heavenly Academy's principal had been fighting openly and covertly for several years in order to fight for the best academy. Now that they met with such a situation, they naturally wouldn't let go of this chance to embarrass Heavenly Academy. Hearing Nan Tao's words, Yi Qing Luo's face didn't reveal any arrogance or conceit. There wasn't even a joyous expression. She was natural and unrestrained as she smiled appropriately. "I'm indebted to Nan Tao's principal's praise and high hopes. Devil Class really can't afford to be famous." Pausing for a moment, her gaze was firm. "But I believe that based on our hard work, one day in future we will be able to become famous like what Nan Tao Academy said, and not let Nan Tao Academy down." Nan Tao Academy's principal choked. He couldn't even say a single word. Looking at Nan Tao Academy's steely green expression, the surrounding students burst out laughing. All of them were praising Yi Qing Luo for her ambition. In actual fact, they were praising this young lady's wit. Heavenly Academy's principal's expression had also eased up from the surrounding praises. He held onto his wine glass as he looked at Yi Qing Luo with an amiable smile. "You children, it's such a coincidence that Sir wants to meet all of you. Come over and greet him." Towards the changes in the Heavenly Academy, the students of the Devil Class did not show any signs of surprise. Instead, they obediently and respectfully greeted the headmaster of the headquarters. The dean of the general hospital smiled and praised him. He then asked the dean to lead them to their seats. How could Nan Tao's dean, who had lost face, let go of this opportunity? From the words of the Heavenly Academy students just now, it was obvious that they were deliberately targeting the students of the Devil Class. Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that the Heavenly Academy was having internal strife. "Wait, Dean Xian, just now I heard from the female student beside you that the students from the Devil Class are disdainful to attend the banquet of the Central Courtyard's gathering. Don't you need to explain this?" He raised his eyebrows with a righteous look on his face. "Students of Devil Class, why are you late?" President Nan Tao lowered his voice and said in a bewitching manner, "No matter what the reason is, as long as you tell us why you're late, the teachers here will definitely uphold justice for you." The twists and turns between the students. These deans were naturally aware of this. Who wouldn't be able to tell that those students were ostracizing the Devil Class students, as long as they gave the Devil Class students a little benefit, telling them clearly about the internal strife between the students. The news of the internal strife between the students. Chapter 1401. This was exactly what Dean Nantao had in mind. The Heavenly Dean's face sank. What does Dean Nantao mean by that? As the headmaster of the academy, I naturally do not wish to see the students suffer any grievances. Dean Nantao put on a righteous and awe-inspiring look as he stood up and looked towards Yi-Ching Luo. Young lady, just boldly say it out. This dean will definitely stand up for you. You. Principal Xian's face turned cold. His face was filled with rage, but he was unable to forcefully stop Yi-Ching Luo's words. Otherwise, it would only make people more suspicious. The Heavenly Dean's anger rose as he glared at Su Xiaolian. If it wasn't under the watchful eyes of the public, he really wanted to strangle this rumor-mongering female student to death. Su Xiaolian felt a chill run down her spine and subconsciously grabbed Zi Qianchan's sleeve. However, Zi Qianchan shook him off mercilessly. It was obvious that he was prepared to draw a clear line between them. The students of the Devil Class. How did they know that the headquarters had set up the first banquet of the exchange meet? Why did they arrive at such a coincidental time? If Yi-Ching Luo directly said that they totally didn't tell her about the matter of the main courtyard inviting the students to attend the banquet, Zi Qianchan would definitely take the blame. He threw all of them onto himself. At that time, the dean would definitely not be lenient. Su Xiaolian's eyes reddened as she trembled in fear. Everyone's eyes were all concentrated on Yi-Ching Luo. Everyone looked like they were watching a good show, waiting for Yi-Ching Luo's reply. The reason for being late. Yi-Ching Luo's brows rose as her long and narrow eyes looked towards Nan Tao Dean. That glance made Dean Nantao's face light up with joy. He nodded his head vigorously and smiled amiably. Yes, don't hide anything. Sir, and we are all here, don't be afraid. Yi-Ching. Heavenly Dean frowned, trying to remind Yi-Ching Luo in a low voice. But he was interrupted by Yi-Ching Luo's laughter. Yi-Ching Luo's smile was like a blooming, gorgeous rose, giving off an unparalleled charm. Every smile, every frown, every movement seemed to be able to tug at people's hearts. The surrounding people of the academy were already unable to shift their gazes away from her. Beautiful, her beauty was breathtaking and intoxicating. Even Zi Qianchan, who was known as the #1 beauty in the Heavenly Academy, was completely suppressed by Yi-Ching Luo's majestic aura. This girl, he was definitely a source of trouble. It was no wonder that the relationship between the Heavenly Academy students and the Devil Class was in such a deadlock. Not a single academy representative spoke to break the deadlock. Yi-Ching Luo's smile was elegant as she replied politely, "The reason why Devil Class is late is nothing that cannot be told to the various teachers." Dean Nantao was delighted. Immediately following that, Yi-Ching Luo continued, "Because of this trip to South Waves Continent, the Academy specially allowed us to walk all the way to South Waves Continent's Valley Wind City in order to train our stamina, which took a total of 6 days." The hall was in an uproar. They had more or less heard about the news of the Heavenly Academy walking on foot. However, none of the academies took it seriously. After all, over the years, the Academy Exchange Conference wasn't just a simple exchange. There was also competition between students. The various academies all wished that their students could eat and sleep well so that they could fight with their best spirits. Who would be willing to waste the energy of the students on the way? Unexpectedly, the Heavenly Academy really did it. Chapter 1402. It's our devil class's fault for being late. So how can we trouble Dean Nan Tao to help us plead for leniency? Yi Qing Luo bowed deeply to the dean. Sir's kind and generous, not haggling with us kids. Qing Luo feels guilty and punished myself with a glass of wine. May all the teachers forgive devil class's behavior. Saying that, she stood up straight and picked up a glass of wine from the waiter's hand, draining it in one gulp. Decisive and direct action, appropriate and humble words, winning the favor of many of the teachers present. This was an intelligent girl, knowing how to shoulder all the responsibility on herself, knowing how to clear the academy of any negative comments. As compared to those female students who spoke out about the discord between themselves and their classmates, devil class's student Yi Qing Luo was the truly intelligent female student. If their academy had such students who were not united in front of outsiders, they would absolutely expel that student from the academy, in case they disturbed the academy's peace. Dean Xian's expression eased up. The gaze he shot towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with sincerity and warmth. Yi Qing Luo wasn't considered stupid. Dean Xian was extremely delighted by Yi Qing Luo's words as he laughed out loud. Good lass! Good lass. Quickly follow your dean to your seat and have a good rest. Yi Qing Luo led the devil class students to express her gratitude. Following that, she followed Dean Xian to the first seat on the right. The 100 or so students lined up one after another. Yi Qing Luo had gained the fondness of the dean earlier, and she was after all the champion class in the Heavenly Academy. Dean Xian arranged devil class's seat right at the front. Beside Yi Qing Luo were Long Yunzhan and Yan Xiaoyi, and I. Next to them were Zi Qianchan and Wei Beilai. Some were happy, while others were worried. Yi Qing Luo's words earlier were totally flawless, but in Dean Nantao's ears, it was obvious that she was mocking him. Mocking that he was narrow-minded and only knew how to make use of children to achieve his own goals. He admitted that Yi Qing Luo's sarcasm was right, but he was ridiculed to such a state by a student in front of the various academies' deans. How could he tolerate this? At this moment, Dean Nantao not only hated the Heavenly Academy for snatching his position as the #1 academy, he also hated the bunch of yellow-haired brats in devil class. To put it bluntly, this exchange conference banquet was actually a welcoming banquet. The headmaster of the General Academy routinely asked the deans of each academy about the current situation of the academies. Following that, he used the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition to praise the devil class. After 3 rounds of drinks, the director of the General Hospital finally revealed the main purpose of today's visit. A few days ago, I invited the famous martial arts fanatic of the Nirvana realm, Mr. Gue Wu. Ghost warrior? All the deans sucked in a breath of cold air. Soon after, he looked around, wanting to see what the legendary ghost martial artist looked like. In the Nirvana realm, the ghost martial artist could be considered as a first-rate expert. He did not compete with Xian Qi, only with physical combat. There was probably no one in the world who could be his opponent. This person loved to practice martial arts and was a complete martial arts fanatic. And he especially liked to find people to spar with. There was a taboo in sparring with him. That was, since it was a spar, then it could only be physical combat and absolutely could not use Xian Qi. If the opponent dared to use Xian Qi during the spar, the outcome would definitely be extremely tragic. Don't think that just because the ghost martial artist was a martial arts fanatic, he didn't have a profound grade. Chapter 1403. When Gue Wu's name appeared, the representatives of the various academies were unable to contain the excitement in their hearts. In previous years, students from the various academies would display what they have learned in the academies, said the dean of the General Hospital with a benevolent smile on his face. It wasn't hard to tell that he was in an extremely good mood after inviting Gue Wu over. For this year's exchange meet, this lord feels that it would be better to assign the students to the Ghost Martial School and let them undergo 7 days of training. After that, the students of the various academies will compete with each other. What do you all think?" All the academies were shocked. All of them nodded in agreement. How could they have any objections? He could be trained by a ghost warrior. To them, this was a great honor. How could they possibly refuse? The students were also excited. No one wanted to miss this opportunity. Even Zi Qianshan clenched his fists in excitement. As for the devil class, their expressions were still as calm as before. Zi Qianshan saw this and only sneered in disdain, thinking that Yi Qing Luo and these lowly trash didn't know who Gui Wu was. Ghost warrior. Yi Qing Luo mumbled this name softly as she glanced sideways at Long Yunjian. Martial fanatics training will definitely be of great help to us. Long Yunjian lightly nodded his head, but there might be problems in the competition. His clear blue eyes glanced in Zi Qianshan's direction. This was indeed a problem. The competition after the training was the academy's competition. As for Zi Qianshan and the others, it was obvious that they would not coexist peacefully with the devil class, not to mention working together. From the moment he walked into the hall, he had been clearly provoked by Dean Nantao's words. Yi Qing Luo was almost certain that Zi Qianshan and the others had probably done something stupid. The other academies were likely to take advantage of this point to deal with the Heavenly Academy in the competition. Whether they want to help or not, it's up to us. Yan Shaoyi cast a disdainful glance at Zi Qianshan, who was beside her, and sneered. They don't have a sense of teamwork, but we don't. That's enough. That's right. We don't need their help. Kitty Lee, who was sitting behind them, chimed in. Kitty Lee's voice carried the soft murmur of a cat, her voice soft and gentle. But Zi Qianshan and Wei Beilai, who were sitting in the front row, heard it clearly. Zi Qianshan's expression darkened as he stared coldly at Kitty Lee. Before they could open their mouths, they heard Wei Bailey's displeased voice ring out. You can rest assured about this. We are students of the elite class, after all. Compared to trash like you, who only managed to cultivate to the profound rank by using some kind of crooked method, we definitely won't drag you down. But you guys don't give me any trouble. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, she laughed instead of getting angry. Her long and narrow eyes curved, and she smiled happily. You're right, we can't ask too much of you. As long as you don't give us any trouble, that's enough. The devil class students behind him all burst out in laughter. Zi Qianshan and Wei Bailey's faces were ashen as they suppressed their anger. Sitting at the front, the Heavenly Dean and the two elders, Yun Yun and Yun Xiang, sensed something strange behind them and gave them a warning glance. The banquet came to an end under the atmosphere of all the academies hiding daggers in their smiles, all kinds of conspiracies and all kinds of schemes. At the end of the banquet, the main courtyard's dean specially asked the devil class to stay. Tomorrow's training, you have to double your efforts. This lord thinks highly of you. The main courtyard's dean personally instructed. Chapter 1404. This devil class. How did they manage to capture the principal's heart? How could they even get the principal's personal instructions? Over the years, only the devil class had enjoyed such treatment. Devil class and the rest humbly thanked the principal. Following that, they left the Heavenly Dean's entourage. Due to the envious gazes from the other deans, the Heavenly Dean's vanity was satisfied. So much so that along the way, he didn't give the devil class any face. He even changed his usual behavior and would chat with Yi Qing Luo from time to time. Yun Duan also chimed in by the side, praising Yi Qing Luo. Along the way, it was bustling with laughter. On the contrary, Zi Qianshan and his entourage remained silent. Devil class was the center of attention. On the contrary, she was a student of the Heavenly Academy's class of gods, a proud daughter of heaven. She couldn't even compare to a devil class. During the entire banquet, no one mentioned her. Zi Qianshan. Everyone's attention was placed on devil class, on Yi Qing Luo. Goddess Qianshan, don't be angry. They won't be able to shine for long. Su Xiaolian whispered into Zi Qianshan's ear. She had just opened her mouth when Zi Qianshan's cold eyes swept past her. Zi Qianshan's expression was sinister. Because of jealousy, it revealed a bone-piercing chill. It's all your fault. How dare you spout nonsense in front of Sir? If not for this, Sir would not remember Devil Class. Remember Yi Qing Luo, that slut. Su Xiaolian hung her head aggrievedly. Weren't these the words Zi Qianshan had instructed her previously? As long as she found an opportunity, she would think of ways to embarrass Devil Class, to make the principal of the Heavenly Academy feel disgusted at the mention of Devil Class. But these words, Su Xiaolian didn't dare to say it out. Goddess Qianshan, don't worry next time. There won't be a next time. Su Xiaolian's eyes flashed a trace of ruthlessness. Tomorrow, won't Sir Gui Wu give us training? Sir Gui Wu is a complete martial arts fanatic. We can borrow Sir Gui Wu's strength to give Devil Class a heavy blow. Zi Qianshan narrowed his eyes. Is Sir Gui Wu someone we can make use of? Doesn't Devil Class like to be in the limelight? Then let her be in the limelight. As long as she attracts Sir Gui Wu's attention, we can add fuel to the fire. Su Xiaolian chuckled. Her eyes filled with jealousy and resentment. Zi Qianshan pondered for a moment, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. She did not answer Su Xiaolian's question, but he didn't stop her. Su Xiaolian understood that she was being used by Zi Qianshan again. He returned to his dormitory number 1. Yi Qing Luo and Zi Qianshan coincidentally walked towards the same room. Zi Qianshan's footsteps halted as he recalled that his room had been forcefully occupied by Yi Qing Luo, recalling the director's attitude towards Yi Qing Luo earlier. Zi Qianshan knew very well that if she insisted on getting the headmaster to step in, it would only make the headmaster hate her. For a room, it's not worth it. Zi Qianshan snorted coldly, turned around, and walked to another room. Yi Qing Luo sneered as she returned to her room. Entering South Wave's continent for the first time, Yi Qing Luo was prepared to take some time to investigate the general situation of South Wave's continent. Fortunately, Peach was also chosen by the dean this time. Earlier on the way back to the academy, Yi Qing Luo had already asked Peach to get her Peach Blossom 3000 mercenary group to give her a rough map of the South Continent. The feeling of being summoned by Chi-Chi. She was very interested. Following Gui Wu's training was a total of 7 days, including the competition between the academy students. It would take at least 10 days to half a month. Chapter 1405. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up. Her gaze congealed towards a spot on the roof as she asked in a low voice, "Wind, are you there?" A gust of hurricane struck. She saw a young man dressed in black standing in the middle of the room. That immature face, icy cold expression, and his voice was emotionless. "Miss Yi." Ever since that snitch incident, Win's heart had gradually confirmed Yi Qing Luo's existence. He was also willing to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side, protecting her in secret. Although Wind had not directly addressed Yi Qing Luo as mistress of the imperial palace like Tang Beiyuan, but his attitude towards Yi Qing Luo was obviously different from before. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand, asking him to come over. Wind hesitated for a moment, but still went nearer. A pair of eyes didn't dare to look at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled as she asked in a low voice, "Have you been inquiring about the imperial palace these few days?" Wind shook his head. "I've been ordered to protect Miss Yi, not leaving her side." "You don't know about the imperial palace's current situation?" Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly, thinking that she could find out some news about DMO Xian from Wind. Wind shook his head again. As he shook, he seemed to have understood something. "If Miss Yi wants to know about the Overlord situation, you can ask him personally." DMO Xian had already activated the telepathic link between the profound dragon ring and the profound phoenix ring. as long as Yi Qing Luo wanted. She could contact the Overlord DMO, Xian, anytime. Why was there a need to specially find him to inquire about the Overlord's news? Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. I don't want to disturb him intentionally. At this juncture, DMO Xian must be busy with the Imperial Palace's matters. The reason why the Imperial Palace was involved with the Dark Forces. The main reason was because of her. DMO Xian went to destroy Wolf Saint's forces because of her. After this confrontation with the Dark Forces had indeed suffered a heavy blow. But Yi Qing Luo was very clear. The Dark Forces would absolutely not let this matter rest. The Imperial Palace must have suffered a heavy blow in this confrontation. If she was concerned about DMO Xian through the profound Phoenix Ring, she was afraid. She would not be able to control herself and wanted to see him. Hearing his voice, she wanted to see him. She wanted him to hold her in his arms and feel his warmth. She did not want to become DMO Xian's burden. She didn't wish for DMO Xian to hurt the hearts of the brothers in the Imperial Palace because of her. At this moment, what the Imperial Palace needed the most was DMO Xian to hold the fort. Wind fell silent. He could tell that Yi Qing Luo was sincerely thinking for DMO Xian. He didn't approve of Yi Qing Luo contacting the Overlord under such circumstances. He believed it. Based on the D Zun's personality, he would absolutely abandon the mess in the Imperial Palace and run over to meet Yi Qing Luo. It was right for Yi Qing Luo not to contact the Overlord first. A phone. Yi Qing Luo suddenly smiled and changed the topic. Actually, I want to ask you for a favor. Wind immediately regained his senses as he looked at Yi Qing Luo in a daze. Tomorrow, I'm going to participate in the Academy's training. It will last for 7 days. Yi Qing Luo summoned Chi from the pet space. If it's convenient, can you help me to search for a place and remember the map for me? Where? Ah Feng hesitated for a moment and asked. Chapter 1406. South Continent. Chi had sensed a strong calling. After her training in the academy, to find time to search for it, it would probably take up a lot of time. Might as well let Wind go scout the way first. By then, she would bring Chi over. At least it would save more than half of the time. Wind's expression changed slightly when he heard that, Miss Yi, the Overlord asked me to protect your safety. The place that Chi mentioned was half a day's journey from Valley Wind City. A round trip would take an entire day. He still had to find out the surrounding roads and draw a map for Yi Qing Luo. No matter what, she would have to spend the night there at the earliest. It's all right, I'm in the headquarters, training with ghost martial artists. For a total of 7 days. Even if the Dark Forces want to find trouble with me, they can't possibly do anything to me in the headquarters. Yi Qing Luo saw Win's worries and comforted him softly. At most, it's Zi Qianqian and those who can't be seen in public who would secretly do something. Wind hesitated. Yi Qing Luo was training with ghost martial artists in the headquarters. It was indeed very safe. Wind had witnessed Yi Qing Luo's battle power, like Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaolian, those who wanted to make a move on Yi Qing Luo. It was totally countered by Yi Qing Luo in minutes. Don't worry, I'll tell Xian about it. Yi Qing Luo saw the struggle in Wind's eyes and stood up. Then tomorrow after I go to the headquarters training grounds, if you feel that I'm safe there, then you can make a decision. How about that? Yi Qing Luo took a step back. Wind also took a step back and agreed to this request. The next day, before it was 7 in the morning, all the students were woken up by Dean and the 2 elders. Devil Class's students usually woke up at this time to start their morning training. Hence, not long after Principal Xian called out, the students of Devil Class were already standing neatly in the courtyard. 62 students, no more, no less. Dean Xian's gaze towards Devil Class revealed a trace of astonishment. I seem to finally understand the reason why Devil Class's students were able to get first place. Yun Duan stood at the side, stroking his white beard as he looked at the youths in the Devil Class who were standing ramrod straight, his eyes filled with admiration. Instructor Chu gave a rare smile. From the first day of training Yi Qing Luo, I have an intuition that this girl can bring unlimited motivation to the people around her. Instructor Ho gave a rare compliment. Ever since student Yi Qing Luo entered the Devil Class, I've already guessed that the students in the Devil Class would undergo an earth-shattering change. The two instructors were obviously not good at praising others. After this compliment, both of them felt a little awkward. They looked at each other. Suddenly, they laughed at the same time. That lass is someone who can create miracles. We're not surprised that the students of Devil Class would have such a huge change. The two instructors said this in unison. Io, the two of you are called cold instructors by the students, but you're actually praising a student like there's no one else in the world. Yun Duan's face was full of smiles, not forgetting to tease the two instructors. The instructors' expressions changed slightly. Their cold and dignified gazes swept across the rows of youngsters in front of them. We acknowledge her ability. Just as they were speaking, the other students rushed over one after another. The students were still in a daze from sleep. They also didn't see clearly who the group of students standing in the courtyard were. One by one, they ran to the side of Devil Class in a fluster. With this comparison, Chapter 1407, the Heavenly Dean furrowed his brows as he looked at the students who were still drowsy and then at the Devil Class who were in high spirits. He was getting more and more dissatisfied with the students. The other students did not have the sense of urgency during training. They thought the dean wanted to hold a meeting for them before heading to the training grounds. The students did not pay much attention as they yawned and stood crookedly. Some of them were rubbing their sleepy eyes as they chatted softly with the students beside them. He had an extremely lazy look on his face. The dean's face turned darker and darker. When his gaze landed on Zi Qianshan and Wei Beilai, the expression on his face eased up slightly. Zi Qianshan and Wei Beilai stood at the side of the Devil Class, dressed neatly and in high spirits as they stood upright. Fortunately, he still had two students from the class of gods. This gave the dean some comfort. Looking at the other students, the dean glanced at Yun Xiang, who was at the side with a calm face. Yun Xiang understood and immediately coughed a few times. A scolding voice filled with profound qi spread in the sky above Tianzi Dormitory No. 1. Finally, it made those lazy students perk up. The Heavenly Academy's face was calm as they preached to everyone as usual, emphasizing that in the next 7 days, they must be united and harmonious, help each other and strive to suppress the prestige of the other schools. In the preaching, the students' spirits gradually sobered up. After about half an hour, the dean looked at the time and allowed the two instructors to lead the group of students to the training grounds of the headquarters. The group of people stepped on the road in a grandiose manner. No one noticed that on a big tree not far from Tianzi Dormitory No. 1, a young man in a white robe was pulling a young man in black, spying on everything in the Heavenly Academy. The young man in black was impatient. "Young Master Amo, what are you trying to do? Even if you are interested in that girl, you don't have to drag me along, right?" The young man in white raised his eyebrows and laughed evilly. "Ah, woo, we are good brothers. Of course you can't miss out on such things like squatting at the corner." Saying that, he used his elbow to nudge the young man in black. "I am getting more and more interested in the Devil Class. This training seems to be very interesting." The young man in black had a cold face and did not say a word. Ah, the training grounds of the headquarters. By the time the Heavenly Academy arrived, there were already quite a number of students who had arrived. The deans of the various academies had to go to the main hall of the headquarters to discuss the exchange between the academies with the deans. Therefore, all the students were led by their own instructors, elders, or teachers. The moment the Heavenly Academy arrived, the headquarters masters came forward to receive them and headed towards their direction. The Heavenly Academy was the top academy. He was standing at the first position near the entrance of the training ground. Next door was Nantao Academy. There were already about 20 to 30 academies that had arrived. The students also became more and more spirited and excited in this exciting and tense atmosphere. Their gazes scanned the surroundings for students from the other academies, and some even started chatting with each other. The students from the various academies were of similar ages, so it was easy for them to chat. Another hour passed, and all the academies had arrived. They stood in their respective positions according to their class. Surrounded by a group of elders, the vice dean stood in front of the students of the various academies. There were also students who couldn't stop their voices. Chapter 1408. In a split second, the entire training ground was dead silent. The vice dean of the general hospital swept his gaze over the childish faces below with a dignified look. His gaze finally stopped in the direction of the Heavenly Academy. Yi-Ching Luo noticed that the vice president's gaze was fixed on her. She was stunned and didn't understand what was going on, but she didn't show her puzzlement on her face. Her lips only curled into a smile and politely nodded to the vice president secretly. The vice president stroked his beard and smiled in satisfaction. Zi Qianqian's face turned gloomy. She shot a disdainful glance at Yi-Ching Luo and lowered her voice to ridicule. You really think you're the focus of attention. The vice president isn't even looking at you. What are you so proud of? Yi-Ching Luo was speechless. How free was Zi Qianqian? So free that he would stare at her for no reason? Yi-Ching Luo couldn't be bothered with Zi Qianqian. But Zi Qianqian obviously didn't intend to let Yi-Ching Luo off. Su Xiaolian had already sneered. The vice president is looking at our goddess, not any other Tom, Dick, or Harry. Yi-Ching Luo still ignored her. Su Xiaolian had already dragged her other sisters over and began to mock them in low voices. Yi-Ching Luo could tolerate it. The devil class's students couldn't tolerate it any longer. Kitty Lee's beautiful eyes widened as she stared fiercely at Su Xiaolian. She breathed heavily through her nostrils. Her lips moved slightly, revealing her white teeth, and her slender fingers curled into claws. It seemed like she wanted to rush forward and bite Su Xiaolian and those gossiping female students. But before the devil class students could make a move, Instructor Chu had already walked straight to Su Xiaolian with a cold gaze. Student Su Xiaolian, your performance in the Southern Continent is enough for the school to force you out. This is your last chance. If you don't want this chance, then I can fulfill your wish. Su Xiaolian's face turned pale and subconsciously grabbed Instructor Chu's sleeve. Instructor, I'm sorry, I don't dare. I don't dare. Instructor Chu snorted coldly and shook off Su Xiaolian's hand and returned to the front of the team. This episode caused the other students who wanted to cause trouble to not dare to open their mouths or play any tricks. Kitty Lee retracted her claws and made a funny face at Su Xiaolian. Soon after, she turned her head seriously and looked at the vice headmaster in front of her. The vice principal of the General Institute spoke for a period of time before getting down to business. This time, the 7-day training will be conducted by Master Gui Wu, whom the Lord has sincerely invited to train the students. Of course, the headquarters will also arrange for 5 instructors to assist Master Gui Wu. Pausing for a moment, the smile on his face widened. Raising his hand, he started to applaud. Now, let us invite Master Gui Wu and our 5 instructors. The students applauded excitedly. A few figures slowly walked over from the other side of the training ground. At the front were 2 handsome young men, followed by 4 middle-aged men. The students widened their eyes as they stared at the 4 middle-aged men, trying to guess which one of them was the ghost marshal grandmaster. Before the students could guess what was going on, the 2 youths slowly stepped onto the main stage and stood beside the vice principal. As for the 4 middle-aged men, they stood below the main stage. The students were at a loss. Yi-Ching Luo was shocked. She looked at the 2 youths in disbelief. It couldn't be. Chapter 1409. The two youngsters beside the vice president looked extremely handsome with delicate features, red lips, and white teeth. The young man in the moon-white robe was like a charming evildoer. This term, used on a man, was considered as an insult, but Yi Qing Luo really couldn't think of any adjectives to describe that young man. This kind of charming evildoer aura, when placed on the young man, didn't have the slightest bit of femininity. On the contrary, it made him even more evildoer, whereas that black-robed young man had a calm and cool temperament. It seemed that he didn't care about anything around him. His eyes couldn't accommodate anyone or anything. These two youngsters, no matter how she looked, were the sons of aristocratic families. He was completely different from the legendary ghost martial artist, who was renowned throughout the world. Yi Qing Luo felt that the extremely dignified, immortal-like persona that she had imagined had already collapsed. Similarly, the students from the other major academies, as well as the accompanying instructors, elders, masters, and so on, were also shocked. No one could believe that these two youngsters, who seemed to be around the same age as these students, would actually be Ghost Martial? You must be joking. This is the famous Ghost Martial Grandmaster. The vice president's expression was calm, as if he was already used to the questioning gazes of the crowd. Initially, when he saw Ghost Martial, he himself had the same thought. Immediately, he stood up and walked to the side of that black-robed young man and introduced him. This black-robed young man was Ghost Martial. He was expressionless, his brows were tightly knitted, showing a trace of impatience. Hearing the vice president's introduction, his expression became increasingly cold. It was until the white-robed young man beside him tugged at his sleeve that Ghost Martial impatiently moved his lips. "I am Ghost Martial." For simple words, but they were extremely oppressive. It also made the students from the major academies dumbstruck. This voice didn't sound like an ordinary young man's voice, but it was extremely deep, at least 25 years old and above of a man's voice. It had long been heard that cultivating the profound grade could prolong one's lifespan and even maintain one's youth forever. Many women had painstakingly cultivated the profound rank precisely because they wanted to maintain their youth forever. And once one reached the profound grade of the sky mystic overlord and above, one could choose to retain one's looks. There was a very high possibility that this Gui Wu was a sky Xian sovereign. The reason why he looked so young must be because he used the profound rank to preserve his youthful appearance. With that in mind, the students could finally accept it in their hearts. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her charming eyes as she carefully gazed at Gui Wu's chest. Sky profound supreme martial artist, eternal youth? This ghost martial artist's profound rank was actually so high, she activated the power of her profound heart jade. Narrowing her charming eyes, she carefully searched Gui Wu's profound heart jade. However, before her spiritual power could penetrate it, Lin Mingya's eyes widened. All of a sudden, a barrier blocked her psychic energy. Immediately after, a sharp gaze followed the direction of the mental energy and flew straight towards him. This was the first time that Yi Qing Luo had failed in probing the other party's profound heart jade. Not only did she fail, but she even allowed the other party to notice her probing. Yi Qing Luo panicked momentarily as she hurriedly withdrew her mental power, avoiding her vision. Gui Wu's expression congealed. A pair of sharp and gloomy eyes stared unblinkingly at Yi Qing Luo. Slowly he furrowed his brows. Yi Qing Luo was standing in the first row. Gui Wu's gaze, completely without any obstruction, pierced Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo only felt a chill run down her spine. Her heart was incomparably apprehensive. Just at this moment, a tall figure blocked in front of Yi Qing Luo. She raised her eyes and saw Instructor Chu's back, blocking Gui Wu's vision for her. Chapter 1410. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly felt warm. Instructor Chu had sensed her panic and uneasiness. This kind of protective action made Yi Qing Luo feel extremely warm. Gui Wu's gaze was not concealed at all. He was totally staring at Yi Qing Luo. The other academies also looked over. When they realized Gui Wu's gaze had been fixed on Yi Qing Luo, those academy's people were about to go crazy. This Gui Wu, could it be that he had also set his eyes on Devil Class? What kind of poison was in this Devil Class? Each and every one of them seemed to be possessed. Their eyes were staring straight at Devil Class. And that's right, this is Gui Wu who is here to train you. Don't call him master, just call him Ah Wu will do. The white-robed young man put his hand on Gui Wu's shoulder, smiling to smooth things over. Following that, he revealed a devilish smile, like a blooming poppy, exuding a devilish temptation. I, this young master, am Ah Wu's assistant, Zhou Mo, and also your training instructor. The female students' gazes were instantly attracted by Zhou Mo's smile. That face was absolutely the most devilish face they had ever seen. Different from the Overlord's elegant, peerless temperament. Different from Long Yun Zhan's unattainable, iceberg grass temperament. Different from the Devil Class's handsome, extremely pleasing temperament. This was a kind of, she was like a fox, able to make people sink into her charm with a single glance. She had the ability to seduce people to the point where they were unable to extricate themselves. Over there are also your training instructors, Instructor Rin, Instructor Luo, Instructor Li, Instructor Fong. For the next 7 days, all of you must listen to Ah Wu and the 5 of us training instructors. Do you hear me? The question still had a frivolous tone. However, every single word of his exuded an irresistible pressure. The students seemed to subconsciously, in unison, "Yes, we hear you." After finishing this sentence, those students were completely stunned. Those students who were able to participate in the exchange were all the elite students of each academy. Naturally, they understood. They listened to Zhou Mo's words, completely because they were awed by Zhou Mo's terrifying aura. There was no resistance at all. Obviously. He looked so amiable, demonic. At this moment, the students finally understood. Under the mask of evil charm and friendliness, this person was truly terrifying. Master Gui Wu, I'll leave these students to you. The vice president of the general hospital said with a smile, "The president still needs my help, so I'll go over first." Zhou Mo waved his hand at the vice president. "Vice president, take care. Don't worry, Ah Wu will train these students well. In 7 days, I guarantee that you will see a group of students who have been reborn." The vice president of the general hospital smiled and nodded. After the vice principal left, the students' hearts grew heavier and tenser. That majestic aura just now had already intimidated many students. Gui Wu was also not a person who liked to waste time talking nonsense. He looked at the students around him with a cold gaze and said coldly, "It's the first day of training, so I won't make things difficult for you. All of you, run 10 laps around this training ground one by one. Then go to the other 4 instructors and test your strength." As soon as the order came down, many students wailed incessantly. This training ground could accommodate at least 3,000 or 4,000 people. If they were to run 10 laps around this place, they estimated that they might not even be able to finish it before midnight, which was 2 or 3 in the afternoon. How could this be called not making things difficult for them? Chapter 14:11. 10 laps. Many of the students' instructors and elders had a change of expression. Even Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu could not help but change their expressions. Every time Heavenly Academy new students entered the academy, the first thing they trained them to do was to run laps. But they would absolutely not let these students run so many laps in one go. Even if it was them, they might not be able to persevere in completing the 10 laps of the training grounds. The instructors' gazes all looked towards Yi Qing Luo. Zi Qianqian and the rest, Devil Class and the others, all looked towards Yi Qing Luo. 10 laps, This number was not unfamiliar to Devil Class's students. In their past training, Yi Ching Luo placed special emphasis on their physical fitness training, almost hand in hand, training them from head to toe. This training ground if they had to run 10 laps. That wasn't a difficult problem, but after finishing, they still had to go through the other 4 instructors' ability test. Devil Class's students had also been influenced by instructor Zhou Mo earlier, so they knew that these instructors' ability was absolutely powerful. To test their ability in the hands of those instructors, I'm afraid it would be very difficult. But Devil Class's students saw that Yi Ching Luo's expression. There was no change at all, calm and indifferent. Her gaze was calm, quietly looking at Gue Wu and Zhou Mo towards Gue Wu's request. She had no intention to resist. Devil Class's students' hearts gradually quietened down. Looking at Long Yunjian, he was expressionless without any emotion. Their hearts had completely calmed down. Their backbone was not afraid. What else were they afraid of? No matter if they could gain the approval of Gue Wu and these instructors, they only needed to put in all their effort. That would be enough. Devil Class's students' gazes gradually became firm. Begin. Gue Wu ignored those students' wailing voices as he gave the order. Yi Ching Luo was the first, as she started running along the periphery of the training ground with a standard posture. Devil Class's students followed closely behind. Damn, they really ran. 10 laps, it's killing. What are you running for? Let's collectively discuss the conditions with Master Gue Wu. At least reduce those few laps. A bunch of idiots, waste class is waste class. I thought they were really capable. The students from other academies gritted their teeth in resentment. But the Devil Class's students had already started running. Their instructors and elders also urged the students to run. Helpless, he could only grit his teeth and force himself to run. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps. By the 5th lap, it was obvious that the other students were starting to sway and were exhausted. At this time, the Devil Class was already halfway through the 6th round. When the students finished the 6th round, there were already a small number of students who couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. One had to know they had been running from the hour of the morning, which was about 9 o'clock in the morning, until noon. It had been a full 4 hours. It was already lunchtime. However, Gue Wu had already given the order. Those who didn't finish the race couldn't even eat. This caused the students of the various academies to complain incessantly. Early in the morning, he was called to the training ground before he even had his breakfast. After another 4 hours of nonstop running, he had exhausted all his strength. When the students finished their 7th round, most of them were exhausted and collapsed on the ground. As for the Devil Class's students, they were already halfway through the 9th round. They only needed to run for another 1 or 2 incense sticks of time, and they would be able to complete the 10th round. Chapter 1412. The attention of Gue Wu and the few drill instructors were also attracted by the Devil Class. They were extremely curious about the Devil Class. This Devil Class. They were completely like well-trained soldiers. Their running pace was the same, neat and tidy. Even their breathing was extremely stable. It gave people a feeling. These people were running in front of a mirror. This tacit understanding. This running posture. Too proper. It was too unbelievable. The few drill instructors continued to conclude that the students of Devil Class had definitely gone through extremely strict training, and they had the habit of running every day. The other students in the Heavenly Academy were lagging behind by more than just a little bit. Even Zi Qianqian, who was originally refreshed and had the bearing of a celestial being, was now running elegantly and beautifully. Towards the end, it became more and more strenuous. After all, they had walked for a full 6 days and only rested for 1 night. This was only the 2nd day. They had already started such strenuous training. How could they possibly keep up? But didn't the students of Devil Class also walk together with them for 6 days? They could still run so easily now. The other students in the Heavenly Academy were filled with jealousy and resentment. They all thought that the students of Devil Class were trying to show off their strength and to show off in front of the other academies. That was why they mustered up all their energy to snatch the first place in the running circle. After 10 laps, the students of Devil Class steadily stopped at the finishing point. The students at the back were mostly still slowly moving around the 7th lap. There were even some students who were moving around the 5th and 6th lap. Just behind Devil Class were Zi Qianchan and Wei Beilai, as well as a few other students from other academies who were already at the 8th lap. Dismissed. A clear and crisp voice rang out in the neat ranks of Devil Class. The Devil Class's students then retracted their upright and respectful demeanor. One by one, they dispersed and stood around the training grounds, giving the training grounds to the students who were still running. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, who were standing not too far away, looked at the situation of the Devil Class, their lips curled into a smile. This Devil Class is indeed interesting. This time they agreed to deal with the old man from the general courtyard. Gui Wu furrowed his brows and said in an impatient tone, "It's obvious that you've taken a fancy to that female student from the Devil Class, and you insist on dragging me along to waste time." Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. "That's where you're wrong. Although student Yi Qing Luo's looks are not bad and also suits my taste, but she's not a woman that I can touch." Yo! Gui Wu's interest was piqued. "There's actually a woman that our young master, Zhou Mo, doesn't dare to touch. She's Di Zun's woman." Zhou Mo rubbed his chin and narrowed his eyes. "This young master doesn't have the ability to go against the Emperor Palace. Sovereign's woman." A sliver of astonishment flashed past Gui Wu's eyes as he narrowed his eyes to size up Yi Qing Luo. She is indeed different from ordinary people. "You noticed it too?" Zhou Mo's thin lips curled into a smile. "Looks like A Wu has also been attracted by student Yi Qing Luo's charm." Gui Wu shot a cold glance at Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo couldn't help but rub his nose. "I was just joking. Don't take it seriously." Chapter 1413. Zhou Mo's eyes widened in astonishment. "She's searching for your profound jade heart? This lady, she's really daring." She almost succeeded. Gui Wu's voice turned gloomier. Her profound jade heart's grade is probably not low. It's rare to hear you praise someone. Zhou Mo patted Gui Wu's shoulder in amazement as he laughed. "Little Master feels that it's a wise choice to forcefully drag you to agree to that old man's request." Gui Wu rolled his eyes at him, towards this brother with a hole in his brain. Gui Wu didn't want to ridicule him anymore. Yi Qing Luo stood and rested for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. They didn't find a place to rest or wipe off their perspiration. Instead, they looked as though nothing had happened as they stood by the side watching the other students moving like snails. They even whispered to each other from time to time, talking about the students' wrong way of running. They didn't look like people who continuously ran for more than 6 hours. Even those instructors were stunned. One of the instructors, Instructor Luo, couldn't hold it in any longer. He walked over to Devil Class's side and roughly confirmed that the leader of these students was Yi Qing Luo. He stood by Yi Qing Luo's side and asked in a low voice, "This student, your class, has it undergone special physical training?" Instructor Luo. Yi Qing Luo immediately greeted him respectfully, nodded her head, and smiled politely. "The Heavenly Academy has a special physical fitness training program. Master Gui Yu and Master Mo also emphasized on maintaining physical fitness training every day." She didn't intentionally deny it. Instead, she directly brought out Gui Yu and Master Supreme Mo. Only the insiders in Heavenly Academy knew of Gui Yu's name. Instructor Luo treated him as a teacher in Heavenly Academy. But Master Supreme Mo's status in the headquarters was rather high. As a teacher in the headquarters had a record of him heading to Heavenly Academy for an inspection. Hence, when Instructor Luo heard that Supreme Mo had also taught the Devil Class before, He naturally attributed the credit of the Devil class being able to run 10 laps without any pressure to Supreme MO, all the way till it was close to 5 p.m., which was 3 in the afternoon. Those students who had not been carried down had finally completed the 10 laps. After running, the students couldn't even lift their legs. After 10 laps, at least 200 students were carried off the training ground. On the training ground, more than 2,000 students were lying on the ground. They were so hungry that their chests were sticking to their backs, and they were grumbling nonstop. However, it didn't mean that those who finished first could eat first. Instead, he had to wait for everyone to finish running before all the students went to the cafeteria to eat together. In the words of the training instructor, it was, "When we train here, we are not students of the various academies, but a group, a collective. No matter what you do or what training you do, you must be prepared as a team. Yes, community." They were trained under the hands of the Ghost Warriors. He would have to forget his identity as an academy student. If you want to eat early, you want to leave early. In that case, he would urge the students who had yet to complete their tasks to complete them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the entire group would starve together. After running, Gui Wu looked at the incense burner beside him. Chapter 1414. They're all still students and can be trained slowly. Don't put on a long face and scare these kids. Zhou Emo smiled as he tried to smooth things over. His demonic phoenix eyes swept across the training grounds and the students who had collapsed into a pile. He grinned and said, "You guys must be hungry too. The canteen is in front and turn left. It's 500 meters away. Let's go eat." Hearing a youth who looked to be around the same age as them calling them kids, the students felt as if thunder was rolling in their hearts. But at this moment, the students didn't have the mood to complain about this thunder. Hearing that they could eat, their eyes all lit up. Almost all of the students hadn't eaten anything since morning, even if their bodies were tired, even if they didn't have the strength to stand up. But they still forced their sore limbs to support each other as they stood up and wanted to rush towards the canteen. Soon after, on the high platform, Zhou Emo, who was still grinning evilly, said, "You only have 1 hour to eat. If you exceed the time, you will be like those students who were carried off the track just now, eliminated from this round of training." The last 2 words, Zhou Emo purposely paused and said it slowly, smiling lightly, evildoer unparalleled. But the words that came out made everyone's faces pale, like those students who were carried off, eliminated, which meant the 10 laps of training just now was actually a test training. All the students secretly broke out in cold sweat. They were all glad that they didn't pretend to be weak and fainted because of the influence of those students who were carried off. There were also some students who started to sneer. Those students who pretended to faint and were carried off were still gloating, thinking that their little tricks had allowed them to escape this round of training. But they didn't know that they had long been eliminated from this round of training. This also meant that the eliminated students had brought shame to the school that they represented, which also meant that the eliminated students had to stop in this round of the school's exchange meet. Everyone was still secretly rejoicing in their hearts. In the next instant, a whirlwind was seen flying in the direction of the left turn. Following closely behind, many figures followed, maintaining the same speed and the same movement. The students of Devil class all ran towards the canteen. The students who were still in a daze immediately came back to their senses. They all focused their attention on the students who were carried off the stage and eliminated. However, he had ignored Gui Wu's previous sentence. They only had an hour to eat. In other words, half an hour later, the ghost martial artists still wanted to test and train them. They thought that they could rest after running. Didn't you say that you wouldn't make things difficult for them? These instructors are all liars. Ah, the students were crying in their hearts. However, in order to stay, he could only listen to Gui Wu's orders. After the students of Devil class rushed to the canteen, they quickly ordered porridge and steamed buns, etc. Each of them had a bowl of plain porridge, 2 steamed buns, and some side dishes. As for the other students, although they were hungry and tired, after running for a full 6 hours, they were already exhausted and exhausted. Moreover, all of them were young masters and young ladies. The food in the cafeteria was so bland. It was so bland that even the servants and their family ate better than these things. He immediately lost his appetite. Chapter 14:15. It was just a joss stick worth of time. In the originally bustling cafeteria, there were only 100 or so tables of students left in silence. 2,000 over students. The remaining 500 to 600 students. Eat slowly, it's still early, don't rush. Yi Ching Luo's cold voice entered Devil Class's students' eardrums. She didn't say a word and used the World Mercenary Group's badge to transmit her voice. Devil Class's students, ever since they didn't need to be secretive, they hung the World Group's badge on their bodies. This was beneficial for them to contact each other in time. Yen Xiao stuffed a mouthful of steamed bun. 1 hour later, we still need to continue training? Can those students take it? Yi Ching Luo shrugged her shoulders. Whether they can take it or not will depend on their own willpower. But Gui Wu's training method feels as though he is intentionally forcing us students to give up on this training. Ever since she met Gui Wu, Yi Ching Luo had been using this feeling. Gui Wu actually didn't want to train them, but the self-proclaimed assistant of Gui Wu was the instructor beside him, Zhou Mo, who was leading all the training. Thinking of that Zhou Mo, Yi Ching Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo's profound grades are unfathomable. I can't detect it. The other 4 instructors' profound grades are all around Earth profound, 5th grade. Pausing for a moment, she continued, That's right, be careful of Zhou Mo. He isn't as easy to get along with as he looks. On the contrary, Gui Wu shows everything on his face, so it's easier to understand Gui Wu's thoughts. Devil Class's students agreed with her that Zhou Mo's aura was simply too strong. It was comparable to their Madame Ching Luo's aura when she was angry. The next training should be one-on-one hand-to-hand combat with those drill instructors without the use of profound qi. Yi Ching Luo reminded them. Gui Wu is known as the martial fanatic, so the people he brought along are definitely experts in physical combat. Don't force yourself, just try your best. Devil Class's students nodded their heads. Earlier Gui Wu had mentioned this. After running 10 rounds, they would be going to the other 4 instructors to test their abilities. According to Gui Wu's character, it would definitely be physical combat. Just at this moment, a weak voice was heard from the badge. That, I heard your conversation, is it all right? Devil Class's students were stunned. This voice was somewhat familiar. Han Shang? Yi Ching Luo inquired softly. A reply came from the other side. Ching Luo, it's me. The owner of this voice was Mo Han Shang. The young master of the Mercenary Guild had also joined the World Mercenary Group. The Mercenary Group badge could only transmit messages within 100 meters. Mo Han Shang was able to hear their words, and was also able to communicate with them. In other words, Mo Han Shang was also in the canteen? The other students of the Devil Class reacted and quickly turned their gazes to the surroundings of the canteen. Indeed, at a table in the corner of the canteen, he saw Mo Han Shang. Mo Han Shang was dressed in a white-colored academy uniform. He looked at the school uniform and saw the logo of Nantao Academy. Yi Ching Luo suddenly felt that the world was really small. She had just had a conflict with the headmaster of Nantao Academy yesterday. Unexpectedly, Mo Han Shang was actually a student of Nantao Academy. The headmaster of Nantao and the Heavenly Academy had been fighting for more than 10 years. After last night, Dean Nantao probably hated their Devil Class to the core. Mo Han Shang was a student of Nantao Academy. Chapter 14:16. Cough, cough. Mo Han Shang was also rather embarrassed. He coughed dryly a few times as his delicate face surfaced a thin shade of red. He raised his eyes towards Yi Ching Luo. Qing Luo. The three Nantao Academy students who were seated at the same table as Emohan Shang all looked at Emohan Shang in astonishment, as though they hadn't expected this. Emohan Shang actually knew Heavenly Academy students. Furthermore, they knew Devil Class's students. Why hadn't Emohan Shang mentioned this before? First Academy and Second Academy were born to be arch enemies. The Academy's teachers fought openly and secretly, never getting in touch with each other. Whereas Nantao Academy students, who were often compared to Heavenly Academy students, were belittled every single time. This led to Nantao Academy students not liking Heavenly Academy students. Qing Luo could tell the enmity in those three Nantao Academy students' eyes. Her brows rose as her pink lips curled into a smile. Han Shang, I didn't expect you to be Nantao Academy's student. Emohan Shang was a little uneasy as he lowered his eyelids. His curly long lashes covered that pair of delicate and beautiful eyes. I didn't mean to hide it. The disputes between the academies is the academy's matter. Our friendship is our matter. Qing Luo interrupted his self-reproach as her slender hand placed on Emohan Shang's shoulder as she smiled elegantly. No matter if you're Nantao Academy student or any other academy student, it doesn't change the fact that we had once experienced life and death together. When she placed her hand on Emohan Shang's shoulder, Qing Luo then realized in shock that his shoulder was extremely slender, even more slender than her shoulder. The meaning in Qing Luo's words was referring to the fact that they had once done a complicated grade mission together, experiencing life and death together. But in the ears of the other Nantao Academy students, it had become another meaning. The gazes they shot towards Emohan Shang and Qing Luo were filled with ambiguity. Emohan Shang's face turned redder as he clenched his fists in anger and stared at those few students. Don't misunderstand. Qing Luo already has a faded one. Don't use this kind of gaze on me. I don't want to be beheaded. If the Overlord were to find out that his relationship with Qing Luo was so ambiguous, based on the Overlord's possessiveness towards Qing Luo, he would definitely tear him apart with his own hands. Those few students were apparently on rather good terms with Emohan Shang. That gaze was still ambiguous, as he grinned evilly as he glanced at him and Qing Luo, although this playful smile made Emohan Shang even more embarrassed. But at least the atmosphere had eased up. Qing Luo interrupted their teasing in a timely manner as she smiled. You'd better hurry up and eat your fill, so that there's 1 incense worth of time left for digestion. 1 hour later, there will be a huge battle. Nantao Academy's 3 students' ambiguous smiles froze as they looked at Qing Luo warily, as though he didn't believe that Qing Luo, as the student representative of the Heavenly Academy, would say something about the enemy school. Qing Luo didn't bother whether those students believed her or not. She said these words purely because of Emohan Shang's face. If they didn't believe her, there was nothing she could do. Look for me if there's anything. Do your best for these 7 days of training. Qing Luo's charming eyes hooked slightly. Drawing out a long and narrow arc, Emohan Shang nodded his head as he suppressed his voice and said, I will do my best. And about the matter earlier, you really don't mind me telling those classmates of mine about it? Your friends are our friends. Qing Luo shook her head as she smiled lightly as she rubbed Emohan Shang's shoulder. All right, fill your tummies first. Don't waste any more time. Saying that, she, Long Yunjan, and the others returned to their own table. Before they left, she didn't forget to remind them. For this training, no matter what instructions the instructors give, it's best to complete it unconditionally in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, the consequences will not just be being eliminated. Those 3 Nantao Academy students looked at each other in dismay, as though they were trying to figure out the degree of credibility in Qing Luo's words, but not waiting for them to raise their doubts. Qing Luo and the others had already returned to their table as they continued to eat. Chapter 14:17. Indeed, as Yi Qing Luo had expected, 1 hour later, Gui Wu directly let each school students and those 4 instructors to fight hand to hand. Because of the large number of students, Gui Wu directly went from one school to another, and all the students collectively launched an attack against the instructors, fighting hand to hand. The rules of this strength training were very simple. Under the premise of not releasing profound qi and using unorthodox methods, just relying on hand-to-hand skills to defeat an instructor, it would be considered as the school's victory. After hearing these rules, those school's students were all stunned. Their gazes towards those 4 instructors were filled with fiery gazes. One must know that each school had at least 100 over to 300 students. 1 to 200 students ganging up on 4 instructors? There was no need for any skills at all. They could just ganging up and beat them to death. As compared to the other schools' students' excitement, Devil Class's students quietly creased their brows. This kind of training method was the same as Yi Qing Luo, Gui Yu, and Supreme Mo's master DMO Xian, ganging up on the instructors. It wasn't that simple at all. But Devil Class's students didn't feel afraid because of this. On the contrary, the battle intent in their hearts was burning extremely vigorously. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo's prowess, they had already witnessed it. The instructors brought by Gui Wu and Zhou Mo would definitely have extraordinary skills. To be able to fight hand to hand with these people, it would definitely allow them to learn a lot of fighting skills. Devil Class's students were thinking in this way with a learning attitude. But the other students only felt that they should quickly surround these 4 instructors and return to their own dormitories to rest. Does everyone understand? Gui Wu's steady voice, no matter how one listened, and that immature young man's face, had an extremely strong sense of incompatibility. Then the first group to challenge the school. Me, let's do it. A 3rd-tier school's representative hurriedly interrupted Gui Wu's words. Gui Wu frowned as a sliver of displeasure appeared in his eyes. Zhou Mo pressed Gui Wu's arm as he gave a devilish smile and said cheerfully, "All right, then let your school be the vanguard." Saying that, his gaze shot towards the main school's elder not far away. "Then I'll have to trouble the elder to be the judge." All the school's students stood in a line around the training ground. He emptied the space in the middle for the students of the academy to fight with the 4 instructors. The 4 instructors all looked muscular and extremely sturdy. As they stood in the center of the arena, they exuded a powerful aura. The representatives of the 3rd-tier academies were stunned by his aura. Swallowing hard, he encouraged himself and called for his classmates to come forward. This time, there were about 200 students from the 3rd-tier academies. When he stood on the training ground, it was immediately densely packed. The 4 instructors were nowhere to be seen. 200 students against 4 instructors. There was no suspense in the outcome. The other students were also looking forward to this match. It would be best if they could defeat the 4 instructors. After that, they could return to their dorms and have a good rest. Duel start! With a command, the 200 students swarmed toward the direction of the instructor. Everyone was already mentally prepared for the battle to end in an instant. At this moment, something that left them dumbfounded happened. Pay attention. All of you look carefully. Yi Qing Luo spoke in a deep voice from the mercenary group badge. Devil Class's students immediately congealed as their eyes were fixated on the movements in the arena. Chapter 14:18. One after another, figures flew out horizontally. Like a fairy scattering flowers, they flew out in all directions. "Ah! Help! Oh, my mother!" Cries of agony resounded throughout the entire training grounds. Obviously, those who flew out horizontally were not the instructors. That was 200 over students from 3rd-tier academies. But in an instant, there were only 4 instructors left on the training grounds. The instructors were dressed neatly, standing ramrod straight. There wasn't any disheveled or messy look. as though the people who were beaten up earlier weren't the four of them. Looking at those 200 over students, they were all sent flying, landing outside the crowd, lying on the ground, writhing in pain. Yi Qingluo's eyes squinted slightly. Indeed, these four instructors were extraordinary. Earlier, the four instructors' actions. Did you see clearly? Yi Qingluo asked calmly. Within the mercenary group badge, there was a dead silence. Being surrounded by 200 students, the instructors' figures had already been covered. Devil class's students' vision was also obstructed. No one saw clearly what did the instructors do, which resulted in such a short period of time to send 200 students flying. In the world's martial arts, only speed is unbeatable. Yi Qingluo didn't blame them. Under that kind of situation, it was indeed difficult to see the instructor's actions. Even she could only faintly sense the frequency and fluctuation of their actions. She continued, "These four instructors' movements are very fast. If you meet them later, remember not to let them get close to you, otherwise your outcome will be the same as those students." The expressions on Devil Class's students were getting more and more excited. All of them were rubbing their palms, eager to give it a try. Yan Xiao Yi hooked Kitty Li's shoulder, holding her forehead as she sighed. A bunch of youngsters, after staying under Yi Qingluo's hands for a few months, all of them had now become little perverts. The more challenging the things, the more interested they were. These words, Yi Qingluo didn't avoid Emo Hanshang. For instructors, in just an instant, sent 200 students flying onto the ground. This kind of battle power made those students who originally had the attitude of watching a show instantly tensed up. They couldn't believe their own eyes. Under the situation where they didn't use profound qi, it was just a hand-to-hand fight. He was actually able to send the students flying so quickly, and it didn't even affect him at all. Who's going to the next academy? Gui Wu narrowed his eyes and swept his gaze over those students in disdain. Seeing the fear and dread in their eyes, the disdain and mockery in their eyes intensified. The remaining dozens of academies were silent at this moment. That scene just now shocked them so much that they still had no way to recover from their shock. After a moment of silence, he realized that the entire place had fallen into a deathly silence. Almost at the same time, the students of those academies looked towards the direction of the Heavenly Academy. The Heavenly Academy was the top academy. Under such circumstances, it should be the first academy's turn. With this in mind, those students used the excuse of the best academy, the first academy, and so on to urge the Heavenly Academy students and instructors for actual combat training and testing. He listened to the urging words around him. Zi Qianchan's face turned slightly pale. She did not have the time to understand the fighting style of the four instructors. Chapter 1419. If she were to go on stage, she would definitely lose all her face. Zi Qianchan didn't want the number one beauty that she had painstakingly created, the identity of the genius fairy, to be destroyed in a day. The surrounding students were still urging him to hurry up. She squeezed out a cold smile and tried hard to put on a superior look. Her mind was pondering how to avoid going on stage now. But she heard a deep voice coming from not far away. "The Heavenly Academy's people have no guts. My Nantao Academy is not afraid." That was the elder of Nantao Academy. At this moment, with a face full of fear, he blew his beard and stared. "Students of Nantao Academy, stand out!" The students of Nantao Academy looked pale, but since the elder had spoken, they could only bite the bullet and stand out. The students of Nantao Academy perhaps had already inquired about the news of the Heavenly Academy. The number of people was comparable to the Heavenly Academy. About 150 students. Bring out your usual performance and have a good duel with the four instructors so that the instructors can understand your strength, so that they can train you in a more accurate way. The elder said while blowing his beard and staring at the Heavenly Academy provocatively. If it was Elder Yunxiang who followed the Heavenly Academy today, He would probably have been provoked and forcefully compete with the Nantao Academy. However, it was Instructor Chu, an instructor, he who followed the group today. They had always been cold and aloof, and had no heart to compare. They didn't care about the provocation of the Nantao Academy at all. The elder of Nantao Academy provoked for a long time, but did not see any response from the Heavenly Academy. His face darkened and became extremely ugly. But the arrow was already on the bowstring, it had to be released. The elder exhorted a few words and retreated into the crowd. The students of Nantao Academy had no choice but to accept the challenge. After respectfully saluting the 4 instructors, the students of Nantao Academy took the lead to launch an attack. The students of the 2nd Academy were indeed stronger than the 3rd-tier academies by more than a little. The students' cooperation was also not bad. After a portion of the students were sent flying, Mo Han Shang quickly mobilized the students to change their tactics and entangled with the instructors. Perhaps it was because he saw that these students were more or less eye-catching. The instructors were not in a hurry to defeat them, but set after set of fist and palm techniques, constantly breaking the attacks of the other students. The students of the devil class finally saw the trajectory of the instructors' moves this time. Yi Qing Luo. Zi Qianqian's voice suddenly sounded from the side. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and glanced sideways, only to see Zi Qianqian's gloomy expression. Zi Qianqian lowered his voice and said, "Right now, we are all doing this for the honor of the Academy. Don't embarrass us because of your own selfish desires." I should be the one saying that to you. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule. Student Zi Qianqian, you'd better control your own jealousy. This is the Academy's honor. Don't, because of your own selfish desires, cause yourself to lose face. Yi Qing Luo's tone was filled with contempt, extremely sarcastic. Her long and narrow eyes also revealed a trace of mockery. Zi Qianqian's face instantly darkened. Her exquisite and beautiful face looked a bit ferocious. She bit her lips. Yi Qing, full. Was she jealous? Yi Qing Luo was merely a waste, and she was the goddess that everyone chased after. Was there a need to be jealous of that slut, Yi Qing Luo? What selfish desire? What did he mean by embarrassing herself? Chapter 1420. Ah! Bam bam! Just as Zi Qianqian was about to retaliate, suddenly a miserable shriek was heard. Zi Qianqian stopped his voice and immediately looked towards the training grounds. Nantao Academy students, under the hands of the 4 instructors, persisted for about half an incense's time. Finally, they were sent flying out of the crowd. If it was said, for the first time, 3rd-tier academy students were all sent flying. It was possible that the students were too conceited and didn't treat this actual combat assessment seriously, giving the 4 instructors this chance. Then this time, Nantao Academy was the 2nd academy. Nantao Academy students were not any worse off than Heavenly Academy students, but they only persisted for half an incense's time in the hands of the instructors. Heavens, weren't these 4 instructors too heaven-defying? All the students had the same thought in their minds. They had close to 2,000 over students. Ganging up on them, they might be sent flying all over the ground? Qing Luo. From within the metal, Mo Han Shang's voice was heard with a tinge of pain. These 4 instructor skills are very fast, and just like what you predicted. The minute they get close to you, there's no way to resist at all, and you'll be struck flying and eliminated. Yi Qing Luo touched her chin and muttered to herself for a moment. Which of their instructors did you cross hands with? 4. Mo Han Shang replied. The 4 instructors took turns to cross hands once. Their speed and strength are all very strong, and after being touched by them, you couldn't muster up any strength, so there's no way to avoid their attacks. They're really hard to deal with. Yi Qing Luo muttered softly. With Mo Han Shang's words, the other devil classes students all went into deep thoughts. They followed Mo Han Shang's words and after seeing the instructors stretching out their hands, their brains started to think of ways to restrain the instructors. Gue Wu looked at Nan Tao Academy students, and the unhappy expression on his face became more and more obvious. In his eyes, they couldn't even defeat these instructors. These students were all trash, especially when he saw the obvious fear in those students' eyes and how they didn't dare to go up to battle. His heart was getting more and more frustrated. These trash, what did they usually learn in the academy? Just with this kind of aptitude, they dared to be called elite students? When the main elder asked who wanted to challenge the third academy, the entire crowd once again fell into a dead silence. The students pushed and shoved each other, none of them willing to step forward. The annoyance and disdain in Gue Wu's heart was already unbearable. He abruptly slammed the table, and his disdainful gaze swept across the students. A bunch of trash. Why should I waste my time for trash like you? What *T training? I don't have the time for that. The expressions on the students' faces became extremely embarrassed. Those who were thin-skinned blushed and their eyes reddened. I'll woo you. Wrinkling his brows, Zoemo was just about to open his mouth to appease Gue Wu's emotions. However, Gue Wu was unable to restrain his anger as he berated, Enough! It's all because you were so bored that you had to drag me along and waste my time on this group of trash. No matter how much they train, this group of trash is still trash. His words were merciless, causing the faces of the students present to turn red. He wanted to retort, but he didn't know how. His opponent was the Ghost Martial Grandmaster. He was the famous Ghost Martial Master. The entire Nirvana realm knew about his ability. In his eyes, they were indeed trash. But when Gue Wu said that they were trash in front of everyone, all the students' self-esteem seemed to have been ruthlessly trampled on the ground. Chapter 14:21. Waste. This was a term that most of the students were unwilling to bear, especially Nan Tao Academy students. They were so ashamed that they didn't dare to cry out in pain. One by one, the young faces were twisted as they endured the pain. There were 100 and 200 of them, but they couldn't defeat 4 instructors. They were ashamed too, so ashamed that they couldn't show their faces, especially when they heard Gue Wu's reprimand. They felt that this was all because of them. They were the students of the second academy. But in the hands of the instructors, they couldn't last more than half an incense. Their ears kept ringing with Gue Wu's words. Their hearts gradually sunk, as if there was a huge rock pressuring their hearts. The training grounds. It was silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to refute Gue Wu's words. Such a reaction caused Gue Wu to feel increasingly vexed in his heart. His gloomy, cold gaze swept past those students below and finally landed on Yiqing Luo. Following that, he shook off Zhou Mo's hand, turned around, and prepared to leave. Zhou Mo's handsome brows knitted tightly as he quickly chased up, trying to pull Gue Wu back. Gue Wu's footsteps became faster. Master Gue Wu, wait a minute. Just at this moment, a clear voice in this silent atmosphere was extremely loud. Following that, he saw a stunning young lady dressed in green and white uniform, slowly walking out from the crowd. Yiqing Luo. Zi Qianqian bellowed as he wanted to pull Yiqing Luo back. But helplessly, Yiqing Luo had already walked far away. Zi Qianqian could only withdraw his hand as he furiously clenched his fists. Gue Wu's footsteps halted. He turned back as his eyes met with Zhou Mo's. Then, at the same time, he looked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light, her posture elegant, not hurried nor slow. She wasn't walking towards Gue Wu and Zhou Mo. Instead, she was walking towards the crowd, towards the direction of Nan Tao Academy students who were sent flying. The surroundings were completely silent. Only the sound of Yiqing Luo's slow footsteps could be heard, and the originally furious, disdainful, and mocking Gue Wu stood rooted to the ground. not blaming Yi Qing Luo for being unreasonable. Yi Qing Luo walked to Mo Hanshang's side as she bent down and helped him up. "Where does it hurt?" Mo Hanshang was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's actions. He was startled for a moment before he came back to his senses. He shook his head in panic and said, "I'm fine, you. Instructors control their strength and skills very well. It's just some superficial injuries. Rest for tonight, and it should be fine by tomorrow." Yi Qing Luo minded her own business as she checked on Mo Hanshang's injuries. When Yi Qing Luo's hand touched his body, Mo Hanshang's expression tightened as he frantically pushed Yi Qing Luo away and retreated a few steps. "I'm really fine." Yi Qing Luo's hand froze in midair. She squinted her eyes as she glanced at Mo Hanshang's chest with interest, and immediately shifted her line of sight as she calmly retracted her hand. She turned around and looked at the two youths on the main stage who were looking at her. "I have a few points that I would like to refute Master Gue Wu's words." Yi Qing Luo's voice was elegant with a faint hint of a smile. The rippling splendor in her enchanting eyes was like a blooming rose. The students of the various academies all gasped in shock. This Yi Qing Luo, what on earth was she trying to do? She actually dared to refute Master Gue Wu's words? Did she really think that she was a famous figure and wanted to challenge Master Gue Wu? Chapter 1422. Just as the students were waiting for Gue Wu to be infuriated and teach Yi Qing Luo a lesson, but they heard Gue Wu's icy cold voice. "Why don't you tell me? What did I say wrong?" Firstly, these students are not trash. Gue Wu Master's words are simply too hurtful to these students' pride. Yi Qing Luo didn't beat around the bush as she spoke in an extremely calm tone. Her expression was also very calm. No arrogance or rudeness, and no fear of putting up a strong front. Aren't they trash? Each and every one of them should have learned at least 5 years of skills in the academy. They should be at least 17 or 18 years old, right? They don't even know the most basic combat skills. Are these students fit to be called elite students? Gue Wu snorted coldly as his vile words didn't give those students any face. When those students heard that, an embarrassed and ashamed expression surfaced on their faces once again. Zi Qianqian and the rest's expressions were steely green as they called out to Yi Qing Luo softly, asking her to hurry back. Their hearts were filled with resentment towards Yi Qing Luo. This Yi Qing Luo seemed to be standing up for them, but in actual fact, she was humiliating them till they were too ashamed to show their faces. Yi Qing Luo totally ignored Zi Qianqian and the rest's actions. She smiled elegantly as her pair of charming eyes looked at Gue Wu calmly as she laughed lightly. "Because they are not you." Gue Wu was stunned as he didn't understand the meaning of Yi Qing Luo's words. "Gue Wu Master, not everyone is like you, possessing such excellent innate talent and enviable ability. This is an ability bestowed upon you by the heavens. But it doesn't mean that everyone has this ability." She said it word by word as she fixed her gaze on Gue Wu. Her brows were filled with calmness. Those ashamed students suddenly raised their heads as they looked at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. Yi Qing Luo continued, "In 5 years you can advance from an ordinary cultivator to a high-leveled cultivator in the Earth Profound Realm, or even more, to the Sky Profound Realm. When you're 17 or 18 years old, perhaps you're already a Sky Profound Overlord expert, an unrivaled Gue Wu Master. But that's your unique innate talent. These students, they're just ordinary people, or perhaps their innate talent is slightly stronger than ordinary people. But after all, they're not you. That's why, Master Gue Wu, you can't demand these ordinary students, or even those slightly talented profound practitioners, to be like you, based on your talent and rhythm. Everyone is born with a purpose. Their abilities might not be fighting or profound qi. They might also have outstanding talents in artifact forging, medicine concocting, or other areas. The students in the training grounds all fixed their gazes on Yi Qing Luo without blinking. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in their hearts. Yi Qing Luo's words gave them a huge confidence. That was right, they were not ghost warriors. He did not have the talent of the ghost martial artist. Not being able to become as powerful as Gui Wu was not because they were trash. What I want to say is that none of us are useless. The real trash are those who only know how to retreat and don't dare to take a step forward no matter what danger they encounter. After Yi Qing Luo finished her words, her brows rose as she looked at Gui Wu. Her pink lips curled upwards. Master Gui Wu, what do you think this student said is right? Gui Wu narrowed his eyes, which were filled with deep meaning, as he sized up Yi Qing Luo deeply. This girl was indeed different from what he had imagined. He actually said something that even he couldn't refute. Chapter 14:23. Wasn't this considered as giving a slap on the face and giving a carrot? All of Gui Wu's words were stuck in his throat. This was the first time Gui Wu was blocked by someone other than Zoemo, and all his words were stuck in his throat. He wanted to say something, but didn't know how to open his mouth. Looking at Gui Wu's gloomy and cold expression, but not spitting out a single word. Zoemo laughed unkindly as he held onto his stomach. One hand hooked onto Gui Wu's shoulder, while the other raised a thumbs up towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Her smile was called a flower's branch, which was called 1,000 dainty and 100 enchanting. Even if it was a man, he was almost bewitched by that enchanting face. Shut up! Gui Wu waved his hand and slapped Zoemo's hand away as his expression darkened, as he stared at Yi Qing Luo's direction. He didn't say a word, but only used that pair of extremely dignified and oppressive gaze as he stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo was also extremely calm, as her pink lips rose slightly as she calmly and politely gazed at Gui Wu. For pairs of eyes met, and no one took half a step back. Yi Qing Luo's words made those students' hearts surge with an indescribable palpitation. None of them were trash. The real trash were those who only knew how to retreat and didn't dare to move forward. They weren't geniuses, and if they wanted to become strong, they needed to rely on continuous hard work, to learn, to struggle. Gui Wu's innate talent was invincible. He could treat them as trash, but they couldn't belittle themselves. The entire audience was silent. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the training ground, on the young girl with a face that could topple cities. The smile on her face, the resolute and calm gaze in her eyes. All of them were filled with convincing, unlimited hope. Everything in the surroundings dimmed down, as though everything in the world was not as dazzling as her. She actually dared to challenge Master Gui Wu. Moreover, her imposing manner was not inferior to Master Gui Wu's imposing manner. If they were to face Master Gui Wu's gaze, they probably wouldn't even be able to look at each other for a moment before kneeling down and surrendering. The various academy students suddenly understood. This young lady who shone brilliantly in the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition and became a legendary figure in the West Continent wasn't an undeserved reputation. The students of the various academies no longer feared the 4 instructors. These 4 instructors were so powerful. Gui Wu also did not emphasize that they had to win against the 4 instructors. Moreover, the students of Nantao Academy were all sent flying. What were they afraid of? Just as the students were about to charge forward bravely, he heard Yi Qing Luo's elegant voice ringing once again. Since I've stood out and refuted Master Gui Wu's words, then naturally I can't just talk without doing anything. Next challenger, Heavenly Academy. She paused and heard Zi Qianqian reprimanding sharply. Yi Qing Luo, you're crazy. Did you even ask for our opinion? Yi Qing Luo being in the limelight had already caused Zi Qianqian's heart to overflow with resentment. She had been restraining the anger and jealousy in her heart. But when Yi Qing Luo mentioned the next challenge, all of Zi Qianqian's rationality had collapsed. Yi Qing Luo was intentionally trying to harm her so that she would lose all her face in front of the various academies and in front of Ghost Martial Master. Hadn't Yi Qing Luo harmed her enough during that interclass competition? What kind of state was Yi Qing Luo trying to force her into? Zi Qianqian's resentment towards Yi Qing Luo was getting more and more intense. Chapter 1424. Qianqian. Wei Beilai noticed Zi Qianqian's situation and immediately grabbed her wrist, reminding her in a low voice. However, Zi Qianqian's thoughts were all on Yi Qing Luo at this moment. Her eyes were ruthless as she clenched her fist. Yi Qing Luo, you have no team spirit at all. The Heavenly Academy is not decided by you alone. What right do you have to make decisions for us? The students from the various academies looked at Zi Qianqian, who was known as the #1 beauty, in shock. Their eyes were filled with disdain. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Her curved eyebrows outlined a long and narrow arc, which made that pair of charming eyes look even more demonic. She looked at Zi Qianqian with a smile full of ridicule. Looks like student Zi Qianqian is the real waste. Earlier, Yi Qing Luo's words had obviously said it. The one who retreated was the waste. Zi Qianqian reprimanded Yi Qing Luo hysterically, which was obviously because she was afraid of the 4 instructors. The students from the various academies couldn't help but burst out laughing. What #1 beauty, what goddess of the class of gods. From this look, the rumored Zi Qianqian was just SOSO. Qianqian. Wei Beilai suddenly pulled Zi Qianqian to his side and frowned. Wake up! His fingers pinched Zi Qianqian's body hard. Zi Qianqian cried out in pain and turned to look at Wei Beilai. Suddenly she froze. The scene of his hysteria just now kept repeating itself in his mind. This was jealousy. She was jealous of Yi Qing Luo. Because of jealousy, she lost her rationality. At this moment, Zi Qianqian had to admit that she was jealous of Yi Qing Luo, listening to the ridicule from the surrounding students and the way they looked at her. Zi Qianqian couldn't help but tremble slightly. Her hands clenched into fists. Her smooth fingers were embedded into the skin of her palm. It's not that I don't want to go on stage. Zi Qianqian restrained the trembling in her voice and tried hard to maintain her usual tone. I just can't agree with student Yi Qing Luo's selfish behavior. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she glanced at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Why would I care about myself? It's not your own business to challenge the instructors. Shouldn't you ask for our opinions before you challenge them? Zi Qianqian said as he turned to look at the students from the Heavenly Academy behind him. Su Xiaolian understood and immediately responded, That's right, that's right. What right do you have to challenge me just because you say so? The students of Intermediate Profound Class 2 naturally stood on Zi Qianqian's side. All of them were seething with anger as they criticized Yi Qing Luo's arbitrary actions. Instructor He and Instructor Chu's faces were gloomy as they stared coldly at Zi Qianqian and the others. Instructor Chu glanced at them coldly, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Before he could say anything, he heard Yi Qing Luo's light and melodious laughter entering his ears. He stopped his voice and looked at Yi Qing Luo. Because I never counted on you at all. Yi Qing Luo gave a light smile as her charming eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule. So, I don't need to ask for your opinions. You. Su Xiaolian's face turned cold as she pointed at Yi Qing Luo with trembling fingers. Her hand was pressed down by Zi Qianqian. Zi Qianqian raised her head arrogantly as her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with a sinister coldness. All right, since you don't count on us, then I'd like to see how powerful this legendary, stunning, and peerless student Yi Qing Luo is. The Heavenly Academy's internal strife was seen as a spectator by all the major schools. Perhaps it was because Yi Qing Luo had argued for them and Gui Wu said that they were trash. Chapter 1425. Yi Qingluo smiled. I can't say that I'm powerful, but the only thing I can confirm is I'm definitely more powerful than student Zi Qianshan. You. Zi Qianshan gritted her teeth in anger. Her beautiful face looked extremely strange because of her malevolent expression. Yi Qingluo had already shifted her line of sight as her charming eyes looked towards the people on the main stage. My devil class, including me, will send out 4 students to challenge the 4 instructors to have a 4 versus 4 battle. What does Master Gue Wu think? The moment she said that, the entire training ground turned silent. The students from various academies looked at Yi Qingluo in astonishment. Some students dug their ears, unable to believe what they had heard. 4 versus 4 battle? Did Yi Qingluo need to play it so big? An academy, 200 students, had no way to withstand 3 moves from 4 instructors. There were only 4 of them. What could they do? Student Yi Qingluo, do you know what you're saying? Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows in interest as he asked with a smile. Yi Qingluo's gaze was calm. Yes, I know what I'm doing. You're representing the entire Heavenly Academy. If you lose, it would also represent the results of the Heavenly Academy. Zhou Mo continued. Yi Qingluo's lips curled as she shot a meaningful glance at Zi Qianshan's direction. I think they absolutely have no objections. How could they have any objections? Yi Qingluo's stubbornness to Zi Qianshan was the best way to escape from losing her face. Zi Qianshan, as a student of the class of gods, must support the battle with the 4 instructors. But Zi Qianshan was very clear of her own battle ability. With Yi Qingluo's stubbornness, even if she lost, the blame would eventually fall on her. All this was because of Yi Qingluo's arrogance. Zi Qianshan naturally had no objections. Hence, Yi Qingluo calmly chose Yan Xiao, Yi, and Kitty Li. Taking another look at Long Yunjian, she finally chose the petite lowly, Mo Yuing, who was beside him. Including Yi Qingluo, it was a lineup of 4 female students. The students from various academies were all stunned. Heavenly Academy wasn't joking, right? 4 versus 4 battle. This was already shocking enough. Now there was actually a female army, and each was more petite than the other. One was weaker than the other. This was hand-to-hand combat, hand-to-hand combat. Was Yi Qingluo sure she didn't choose the wrong person? Even Gue Wu and Zhou Mo were stunned by the female students that Yi Qingluo had chosen. Student Yi Qingluo, are you sure you want to choose these 3 students to challenge the instructor? Zhou Mo narrowed his long and narrow phoenix eyes, unable to conceal his interest towards Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo nodded indifferently. Zhou Mo was in high spirits as he couldn't wait to see Yi Qingluo's brilliant performance. The 4 instructors didn't reveal any disdain or belittling attitude just because Yi Qingluo and the others were 4 female students. The 4 of them wore indifferent expressions as they assumed a defensive posture. Instructor Luo took another look at Yi Qingluo. Instructor Luo had a deep impression of this female student because she was the first to run 10 laps without panting or blushing. Now that they saw Yi Qingluo being so insolent, directly saying that she wanted to have a 4 versus 4 battle with them, Instructor Luo didn't feel that he had been belittled by Yi Qingluo. On the contrary, he was extremely excited. They were extremely curious about what kind of miracle this girl could bring them. The 4 of them faced each other head-on. He was a tall and sturdy instructor. Standing in front of the 4 petite female students, he was totally like a huge mountain. His shadow was able to cover the female students. Chapter 14:26. Yi Qingluo's lips curled up slightly. The so-called challenge is actually for the instructors to understand our skills and abilities, so as to adjust our fighting style and skills. Her voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. Under the clamorous discussion, it was still clear to the ears. The surroundings gradually quietened down. Because of this, when the instructors are battling with the various academies, what you want to see is not which student was sent flying, but which student was sent flying under the instructor's attack? Fighting skills. Fuse profound chi. Then you will be able to unleash the greatest power of profound chi. Yi Qing Luo's gaze looked straight at the devil class's students, as though she was lecturing them, or as though she was lecturing the other students. Yi Qing Luo didn't have the leisure to bother about how those students understood her words, if they were willing to listen. Naturally, there was no harm to them. But if they only held the attitude of "this Yi Qing Luo is pretending again," Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time to explain, because this kind of person would be eliminated by the society sooner or later. Ha ha ha. Student Yi Qing Luo, you're indeed the dark horse in the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition. Not bad, not bad. Zhou Emo, who was on the main stage, laughed evilly. A pair of red phoenix eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. He hooked his arm around Gue Wu's shoulder, raised his brows, and smiled. "Ah Wu, this lady is really sharp. Your thoughts have been seen through by her." Gue Wu didn't reply. With a gloomy face, he looked coldly at the 8 of them on the training ground. "Please." After exchanging greetings, the instructors spat out the same word in unison. Their words had just ended when the 4 petite figures in front of them disappeared from their sight. A strong sense of oppression wrapped around the 4 instructors tightly. The few instructors looked at each other and revealed their first expression today. It was interesting. Finally, there was an opponent who was worthy for them to be serious. "Ha!" A tender reprimand was heard from the side. Yen Xiao Yi unknowingly appeared beside Instructor Ren. She threw a punch towards Instructor Ren's face. Instructor Ren's body bounced as he speedily retreated a few steps. Immediately after, a fist-sized pink fur ball was thrown towards him from the other side. Bang! Instructor Ren's face was hit by the pink furry ball. Instructor Ren furrowed his brows as he felt a scorching pain. What a trick! Instructor Ren wiped his face and looked at Mo Yuing, who was swinging her hair that looked like 2 furry balls hanging from her shoulders. Immediately, with a loud shout, his sturdy body flew towards Mo Yuing. Playing tricks with the instructors? The surrounding students were stunned. This trick really hurt the instructor. Furthermore, none of them had been sent flying by the instructors. Mo Yuying's figure was petite and extremely nimble. The moment Instructor Rin pounced on him, he extended his legs and leaped to the other corner of the training ground. He didn't forget to wave the 2 fur balls in his hands to harass the instructors. Kitty Li and Yen Xiao worked well together. After a few moves, Instructor Ren's face was hit by a ball. None of the other 2 sides were able to gain an advantage. The instructors tacitly distanced themselves from the 4 female students in front of them. They admired the tacit understanding and cooperation of the 4 female students, as well as their ferocious attacks. Just the 4 of them were more powerful than the hundreds of students just now. They knew that they had no way of winning with speed. Moreover, they wanted to attack in close combat. Chapter 14:27. This was the reason why Yi Qing Luo chose Yen Xiao Yi, Kitty Li, and Mo Yuing. The 3 of them had roughly learnt her set of footwork. Yen Xiaoyi's weapon was a sickle, and she was good at close combat. As for fighting techniques, she had some understanding. Kitty Li was from the Beastman race, half human, half cat bloodline. Her movements were nimble, and she could easily move between the 4 instructors. As for Mo Yuing, her body was petite and looked like a puppet without any spiritual chi. But her body was extremely nimble. The 2 pink fur balls on her shoulders could be used for close combat and long-range attacks. Coupled with Yi Qing Luo's set of footwork, he had completely restrained the 4 instructors. Not long later, both parties had fought for about 1 incense's time. The instructors had, after all, experienced thousands of battles and quickly adjusted their battle tactics. Not long later, it became a one-on-one situation. After the 4 instructors exchanged blows, they discovered that these 4 female students' teamwork ability was extremely strong. Not only did they have sharp reflexes, they were also able to block their moves in the shortest time possible. Hence, the instructors tried their best to restrain the 4 female students, not allowing them to get close. Yi Qing Luo's opponent was Instructor Luo. Instructor Luo's height was above 2 meters, and he looked burly, but in fact he was extremely nimble. And his own fighting ability was the most powerful among the 4 instructors. Take my punch! Instructor Luo swiftly struck out a punch, bringing along a scorching hot wind as it brushed past Yi Qing Luo's cheek. Yi Qing Luo's palm moved as her body tilted backwards. She raised her hand, and her slender little hand directly blocked Instructor Luo's fist. Both hands clashed together. Immediately, the dust under their feet flew up. Both of them retreated a few steps at the same time. Instructor Luo's eyes were filled with excitement. Good fellow! I didn't expect student Yi Qing Luo to have such powerful skills at such a young age. Yi Qing Luo modestly pursed her lips into a smile and immediately blended in with Instructor Luo. Fists and kicks clashed, the simplest and crudest fighting technique. Every punch and every kick brought about a terrifying hurricane. After a few more moves, both parties were forced to retreat a few steps. And on the other side, Yin Xiao, Yi, and the rest were gradually at a disadvantage under the pressure of the instructors. Although they could rely on Yi Qing Luo's set of footwork and their own advantages to gain the upper hand. But after all, they were only training their stamina, and the time they had spent on hand-to-hand combat was still short. Naturally, he couldn't compare to the instructors who had been through hundreds of battles. As time went on, he began to feel powerless. After a few more moves, the 3 of them were sent flying. In the field, there was only Yi Qing Luo left, fighting with Instructor Luo. The other 3 instructors immediately flew towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The powerful fist wind was extremely shocking. Yi Qing Luo was still entangled with Instructor Luo. He could feel the aura coming from all directions. A faint smile appeared on his face. Then he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and somersaulted sideways. The encirclement of the 4 instructors instantly fell through. Yi Qing Luo didn't stay any longer. He extended his feet and teleported behind the instructor. With a flip of his palm, he struck the instructor's back. Yi Qing Luo didn't hit him casually, but hit the acupuncture point on his back. Her feet didn't stop at all as she flew up and kicked towards Instructor Rin, who was pouncing behind her. Bam! 2 loud crashing sounds were heard. The 2 instructors fell to the ground. Yi Qing Luo was also evading Instructor Feng's attack. With a somersault, she was coincidentally hit by Instructor Li. Her petite body landed heavily on the ground. Chapter 1428. All right, that's enough. Zhou Mo's voice stopped Yi Qing Luo from pouncing towards the 4 instructors. Zhou Mo's narrow phoenix eyes stared intently at Yi Qing Luo, as his eyes were filled with deep meaning. Yi Qing Luo's skills were very eye-catching. Not only that, those few female students from Devil Class were also extremely outstanding. Over 200 students had no way to subdue the instructors. But in the hands of the 4 of them, they had exchanged numerous blows and were even injured. Zhou Mo was almost certain. If the 4 instructors had not restrained 1 student each and allowed the 4 students to cooperate, this battle was very likely to be won by these 4 students. Heavenly Academy's performance is very eye-catching. You can go back and rest first. Gue Wu's voice was extremely cold, without any emotions. Gue Wu's voice made those students who were stunned on the spot, unable to regain their senses for a long time. What did they see? Devil Class sent out 4 female students and 4 muscular instructors. For against 4 combat instructors, they were actually evenly matched. The most shocking was the last scene. For instructors combined forces to attack Yi Qing Luo. Although they had indeed hit Yi Qing Luo, but Yi Qing Luo had also injured 2 instructors at the same time. 200 students' encirclement couldn't even touch the corner of the instructor's sleeves, whereas Yi Qing Luo, relying on her own strength, under the encirclement of 4 instructors, she was still able to repel 2 instructors. This skill was simply amazing. Even the cold-faced Guiwu, who had just accused them of being trash, opened his mouth to praise her. No wonder Yi Qing Luo dared to be so arrogantly suggesting 4 against 4 combat. It wasn't for the sake of acting cool, but Yi Qing Luo really had this ability, and she believed that the students in her class had this ability. That's great. Heavenly Academy can go back and rest. Then what about us? Don't tell me we still have to continue fighting? Then hurry up and fight. The earlier we get abused, the earlier we can return to the dorms to rest. The students' wails rang incessantly, but in their tone there was no longer the nervousness and fear from before. Thank you, Master Guiwu. Instructor Zoemo Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she bowed slightly towards the main stage in a neither arrogant nor impatient manner, following that she led Yan Xiao Yi and the other 2 back to Heavenly Academy's area. Student Yi Qing Luo, you've done a great job. Instructor Ho gave a rare smile. Instructor Chu smiled and praised. I knew it. If it's you, you will definitely have a way to save the Heavenly Academy's reputation. Because of that, from the start till the end, they didn't stop what Yi Qing Luo wanted to do, because they knew very well Yi Qing Luo would not fight a battle that she had no confidence in. Yi Qing Luo used the 4 versus 4 combat requirement to go against the drill instructor. This also meant that she was 80% confident in her heart. Even if he couldn't win, he wouldn't leave the arena in a sorry state. Just like just now, Yi Qing Luo and the other 4 female students were fighting with the 4 drill instructors. Yi Qing Luo and the other 3, as long as they were able to exchange more than 3 moves with the training instructor, they would be able to win. It was still better than the situation of those 200 students being repelled at the same time. Even if he lost, he wouldn't be in a sorry state. Now the ending, not only did they not end up in a sorry state, but it also gave the Heavenly Academy a good name. It had announced to all the academies that the Heavenly Academy was called the Top Academy. It was not an undeserved reputation. Chapter 1429. Hearing Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu praising Yi Qing Luo, Zi Qianchan and the rest's faces turned green and red. But in front of so many people, they could only swallow the anger in their hearts. After all, Yi Qing Luo had indeed saved the Heavenly Academy's reputation. And indeed, she had fought against the 4 instructors and had won the praise of Ghost Martial Master and Zoemo. But Su Xiaolian couldn't suppress the jealousy in her heart. You also know it's luck and that the instructors are giving way to you. She sneered sarcastically. Her eyes were filled with anger. Such a proud show-off, I thought you didn't know. Her voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't small either. At least the students of Nantao Academy around them heard it loud and clear. Instructor Ho's face suddenly turned cold. Su Xiaolian! Su Xiaolian was berated, and all the students' gazes converged on her. Her face suddenly flushed red, and her eyes became wet. Line up. Go back to the dormitory. Instructor Ho glanced coldly at Su Xiaolian, as if he was looking at a plague, and looked away in disgust. The Heavenly Academy students didn't speak because of this heavy atmosphere. Instead, they lined up one by one and followed the 2 instructors out of the training ground. The moment they walked out of the training ground, Instructor Chu said in a deep voice, "The rest of the students are dismissed. It's free time. Student Su Xiaolian, follow me." Su Xiaolian was still walking in the middle of the crowd, with a few other students, angrily rebuking Yi Qing Luo. Suddenly, she heard the deep growl hanging from the antenna and was stunned for a moment. Before Su Xiaolian could react, she only felt her body lightened, and immediately the uniform was stuck in her throat. She saw Instructor Ho directly grabbed Su Xiaolian's uniform from behind, and with a little force, Su Xiaolian was lifted up into the air. Su Xiaolian flopped a few times in pain. When the other students saw this, they knew that Su Xiaolian's various actions had completely annoyed the two instructors. All the students lowered their heads, and no one spoke up to plead for Su Xiaolian. After the two instructors carried Su Xiaolian away, the Heavenly Academy students were divided into two teams. Zi Qianqian was very angry today. He stared resentfully at Yi Qing Luo, secretly gritted his teeth, and turned away in the opposite direction. In the solemn study room, an old man in a white robe was stroking his white beard, smiling at a bronze mirror in front. That bronze mirror actually showed the scene of Yi Qing Luo and Zi Qianqian going their separate ways. My lord, this year's Heavenly Academy is really extraordinary. There's finally an interesting program. Standing beside the old man was a slightly plump old man with a warm smile on his face. Ever since you mentioned about this year's interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, this lord already had a great interest in this devil class. Indeed, it didn't disappoint this lord. The white-clothed old man nodded his head in satisfaction. This batch of good seedlings needs to be trained properly. In the future, they will definitely achieve great things in the Nirvana realm. These two were the director and Tian and Qianqian. The vice president smiled helplessly. Let's observe for a while first. Master Guiwu has a strong self-esteem and is extremely arrogant. His training is something that ordinary students are unable to adapt to. Today, Yi Qing Luo, that lass's face was hurt. I'm afraid he will think of a more torturous way to torment the devil class's students. The director of the general hospital just quietly stroked the beard on his chin. A glint flashed in his eyes. Indeed, there weren't many who could persist without training under Wu Qianqian.